In her past life, the woman was tortured to death as a plaything by a tycoon. But unexpectedly, the next second, she was reborn, returning to the time before the tragedy occurred. Reborn, the woman was determined to make the villains pay the price, using her own methods to give them a taste of their own medicine. She would focus seriously on her career and no longer get involved in romance. But unexpectedly, she found herself being clung to by a pure and innocent puppy dog type. The pure Tianho persona collapses. Explicit videos with multiple wealthy businessmen exposed late at night. In a well-known gossip forum, someone anonymously posted several explicit videos. What was shocking was that the female lead in these videos was the popular top star, Gu Qianyan. The male leads were also quickly identified as famous wealthy businessmen from various industries. Early in the morning, this explosive incident quickly hit the headlines of all major platforms. Faced with such an event, the crowd of onlookers all wanted to know the truth behind it. They immediately launched a unified barrage of criticism. At this moment, Gu Qianyan's hands and feet were bound to the bed with 4 iron chains. The sharp words of netizens were projected onto the wall in front of her. She trembled as she looked at those words, her beautiful little face deathly pale. What was this before her eyes? And who had tied her up in this strange place? Gu Qianyan, do you like this gift I've given you? The door creaked open. Hearing this voice, Gu Qianyan looked over in horror, staring in disbelief at the source. The source was none other than her own sister, whom she had doted on since childhood, Gu Qianqian. Gu Qianqian's smile was exceptionally sinister. Gu Qianyan, even now, you still think it was Mom and Dad who did this to you, don't you? Wrong, it was me. Gu Qianqian continued. That night 3 years ago, you thought you were drunk. No, it was me who drugged you. I personally took you there. I was also the one who called President Jean over to that room. Gu Qianyan couldn't accept it at all. She questioned loudly. I took care of you since we were little, treated you with meticulous care, and protected you. Why would you do this to me? Why? Gu Qianqian grabbed Gu Qianyan's chin, gnashing her teeth in hatred. You ask why? Because you're not Mom and Dad's biological child at all. You're just a money-making machine they abducted. Back then, to abduct you, my parents personally killed your parents. But all of this is about to end. By tomorrow, you will no longer exist in this world. She gritted her teeth, pinned down Gu Qianyan, and plunged the syringe in her hand into Gu Qianyan's arm. Then, 2 burly men walked in and forcibly dragged Gu Qianyan out. She knew that under the drug's influence, she would be at the mercy of those people to trample on. The people she loved most had all betrayed her. Instantly, her heart turned ice cold. The next second, Gu Qianyan suddenly turned her head and said, Qianqian, if I die, will this carnival end? As she spoke, she used the last of her strength to push aside the burly man next to her and stood on the deck. The carnival has already begun. If I die, they will just find a replacement. Guess who that replacement will be? It will be you, Gu Qianqian. After saying that, she leaned back and fell into the boundless sea. She had possessed immense glory, and she had also been trampled into the boundless deep sea. If only all of this could start over. The next second, the icy seawater and boundless darkness swallowed her whole. When she opened her eyes again, a voice sounded. Don't worry, I've already gotten him dead drunk. In a daze, Gu Qianyan heard a familiar voice. She opened her eyes with a splitting headache. She dazedly surveyed her surroundings. Isn't this the place where she was first defiled 3 years ago? Gu Qianyan's heart raced. The effects of the alcohol were mostly gone. Familiar surroundings, familiar people. Could it be that she had been reborn and returned to the past? All right, we'll talk about the rest when we meet. President Jean should be arriving soon. At this moment, Gu Qianqian was still on the phone, unaware that Gu Qianyan behind her had already woken up. Without a second thought, Gu Qianyan grabbed the table lamp and smashed it on Gu Qianqian's head. Then, she dragged the unconscious Gu Qianqian onto the bed. She picked up the syringe she had placed on the bedside table and injected the entire contents into Gu Qianqian. Since heaven has given me a second chance, I absolutely will not repeat the same mistakes. From now on, whoever tries to harm me, I will pay them back double. Gu Qianqian, I wish you good luck tonight, my dear sister. I hope when a knife falls on you, you won't feel any pain either. Then, Gu Qianyan quickly left the room. But the effects of the drug were still in her system. She had to go to the hospital immediately to deal with it. But just as she stepped out of the room, she heard a chilling, nauseating voice from the elevator. I'm not going over tonight. I found a pretty little starlet to keep me company. At that moment, her heart leaped in her throat. She found a random room and hid inside. Hiding behind the door, Gu Qianyan's heart pounded like thunder. She was almost discovered, but the drug in her body was already boiling in her blood. With President Jin's men standing at the door, going out would be suicide. Just then, a man's voice suddenly came from behind her. "Who are you?" At this critical juncture, a male voice with a subwoofer-like quality exploded right behind the woman's ear. Gu Qianyan was startled. She subconsciously looked outside the door. She seemed to see the gazes of the two bodyguards across the hall turning in this direction. She had no choice. She immediately turned around, pinning the man behind her against the wall. She covered his mouth with one hand and his eyes with the other. Although the lights in the room were off, Gu Qianyan still subconsciously feared that the other person would see her face. "Don't move, don't make a sound. I won't hurt you." The man was a bit taller than her. Gu Qianyan stood on her tiptoes and whispered in his ear. Gu Qianyan could feel his firm muscle lines. These hormones, mixed with extremely strong pheromones, perfectly accelerated and catalyzed the effects of the drug in Gu Qianyan's body. Before the man could say a word, Gu Qianyan kissed him directly. Gu Qianyan couldn't quite remember how everything happened after that. The large room was a complete mess. Gu Qianyan looked at the dress she had worn last night. She didn't know if it was because the dress was of poor quality or for some other reason. In any case, it was now torn to shreds and unwearable. She looked helplessly at the coat on the floor, then glanced back at the still sleeping man. A moment later, Gu Qianyan wrapped herself in a large coat. To avoid taking any of the man's belongings, she rummaged through the pockets and found only a business card. In the faint light, Gu Qianyan saw clearly. Printed on it was a half-naked and alluring pretty boy. Next to it was the name Diamond Baby. Below was a phone number, and under the number was a line of small text, "At your service, body and soul." She swallowed hard and glanced at the man on the bed again. So this is what he does for a living. But he seemed quite stern at the beginning of last night. Could he be new to the business? Gu Qianyan thought for a moment. If he's a professional, then things are simple. Just pay after the service is done. There won't be any other entanglements. Gu Qianyan didn't dare to linger. She just sighed with some emotion and walked straight to the door. Not long after Gu Qianyan left, the man on the bed woke up. He sat up, his brows tightly furrowed. He raised his hand and tore off the hairband tied over his eyes. He looked around. Just as Gu Qianyan had expected, he was indeed an exceptionally handsome, top-tier dreamboat. The mess in the room triggered the chaotic memories of last night in the man's mind. His brows furrowed even tighter. His gaze suddenly turned cold. Where did that woman go? His gaze finally landed on the bedside table. He reached out and picked up the earrings and the note Gu Qianyan had left. "Hello, Mr. Diamond Baby. These earrings are your payment. Also, you ripped my dress, so I couldn't wear it. From now on, our transaction is settled. We owe each other nothing." Gong Yi's face instantly darkened. What the hell is Diamond Baby? The next second, he saw the business card placed next to the earrings and the note. Gong Yi was so angry he laughed. Who would have thought that he, Gong Yi, would one day be earning money with his body? He immediately picked up the phone and told his assistant to find out this woman's identity. He finally learned that the woman was the film queen, Gu Qianyan. After a whole night of torment, Gu Qianyan at one point thought she was going to die. Gu Qianyan watched from a distance, thinking that after today, Gu Diheo and the others would definitely find out that the person who had relations with President Jin wasn't her. At that point, they would surely try to find ways to come after her again. The people around her were also sent by that couple to monitor her. To completely break free from them, she had to get rid of them all and replace them with her own people. Recalling her past life, only her assistant, Zhou Zhou, was the one person who genuinely helped her. Perhaps he could be of use. As she spoke, Gu Qianyan picked up her phone and called Zhou Zhou. "Zhou Zhou, are you home? I'm coming over to find you now." Then, she explained the situation clearly. Zhou Zhou was furious. They're really despicable. It's one thing to give you bad scripts for money, but now they're actually drugging you and doing such a filthy thing. Gu Qianyan looked at Zhou Zhou, her gaze becoming incredibly determined. "Zhou Zhou, I've seen their true colors completely. I don't want to be controlled by them and be a money-making machine anymore. So, I've decided to break free from their control immediately." Zhou Zhou was stunned for a moment. "That won't be easy. Have you thought it through?" Gu Qianyan looked at him. Easy or not, I have no way out. Between them and me, it's either they die or I do. Gu Qianyan's attitude was resolute. Next, Zhou asked what they should do now. Gu Qianyan said, "First, let's watch the show." She raised her phone and called her parents. "Dad, is Qianqian with you? I need to talk to her." She's not answering her phone. The father was clearly stunned when he answered the phone. Why was Gu Qianyan's voice coming from the other end? Who was in there? After the father and mother exchanged a look, they pulled open the curtains and saw that it was their biological daughter, Qianqian. Gu Qianyan hung up the phone and said to Zhou, "They know now. The person last night wasn't me. It's time for me to go over and see their miserable faces." Then she left Zhou's home. Gu Qianqian lay numbly on the hospital bed, her eyes staring blankly ahead, letting Zhang Yumei cry and curse her heart out beside her. Her mind was filled with one thought. Why had things turned out this way? According to her plan, the one lying here now should have been Gu Qianyan. "Mom, how's Qianqian?" Just then, Gu Qianyan arrived fashionably late. The moment she heard Gu Qianyan's voice, her sister immediately rushed forward. She screamed like a madwoman, "I'm going to kill you." Gu Qianyan dodged nimbly, and Gu Qianqian lunged at empty air. Then she fell flat on her face in a sorry state. "Oh, Qianqian, are you all right?" Zhang Yumei and Gu Diheo immediately rushed over in a fuss to help Gu Qianqian up. "It was Gu Qianyan who harmed me. She must have been the one who knocked me out last night and made me take her place." Gu Qianqian looked at Gu Qianyan with hatred. "Gu Qianyan, you have such a venomous heart." "Qianqian, I don't understand what you're saying. On my way here, I heard that you sold Qianqian to get Mr. Jin's 300 million investment. Is that true? Also, she keeps talking about taking my place." He had exhausted all his efforts to get this investment. Now he was finally about to get it. But that was because President Jin thought the person with him last night was Gu Qianyan. If he found out it wasn't Gu Qianyan, this 300 million would likely go down the drain. Gu Diheo's mind raced, and he quickly came up with a solution. He had worked so hard to get this 300 million. Giving it up was definitely not an option. Actually, Mr. Jin mistook your sister for you. He thought he had forced you. He only agreed to sign this investment agreement as compensation. Gu Diheo's expression was grave. "Qianyan, that President Jin is not someone to be trifled with. Mom and Dad can't afford to offend him. We've already taken the money. If he finds out later that the person with him last night wasn't you, he definitely won't let our family go. So just pretend that person last night was you. From now on, you will continue to serve President Jin. All right?" Gu Qianqian gnashed her teeth, hatred churning violently in her eyes. "You and Mom and Dad have been so good to me. It's time for me to repay you." Gu Qianyan lowered her eyelids. Her long eyelashes concealed the unfathomable meaning in her eyes. "You can make the arrangements with President Jin. Don't worry, I definitely won't disappoint you." Gu Diheo immediately breathed a huge sigh of relief. "Good girl. Dad knew you were the most sensible," Gu Diheo said lovingly. Listening to this, Gu Qianyan's stomach churned. It was sickening. In her past life, it was because of this love that she walked step by step into a fiery pit. But now, looking at Gu Diheo's love, it was fake and perfunctory. Even a fool could see his insincerity. How could she have trusted them so much before? "Dad, you must have been worrying a lot about me recently. You've even got white hair," Gu Qianyan said, reaching out and plucking a strand of hair from Gu Diheo's head. "Ouch!" Gu Diheo cried out in pain. "Did I pull too hard?" "I am sorry, Dad." Gu Qianyan looked helpless. Gu Diheo was furious, but seeing her innocent expression, his anger instantly dissipated. "It's nothing. It's good that you know Dad works hard for you." Gu Diheo cleared his throat. "Don't you have a lipstick commercial to shoot? Yang Shui already called to rush you once. Hurry up and go." Although Gu Diheo's anger had subsided, Zhang Yumei's hadn't. Seeing Gu Qianyan's innocent act made her even more furious. She could only find an excuse to send her away. "This damn girl is looking more and more seductive lately. Where did she learn that from?" Zhang Yumei said impatiently as soon as Gu Qianyan left. "Shut up. What kind of mother talks about her daughter like that? Be nicer to her. Don't let her figure anything out," Gu Diheo said impatiently. Gu Qianqian impatiently interrupted their argument. "Is this the time to be talking about this? Haven't you noticed that something's different about Gu Qianyan? I suspect her. I suspect she definitely won't sleep with President Jin. What's there to be afraid of? Even if there's really something wrong with her, she might have escaped the first time, but I won't let her get away the second time. She can't escape from my grasp," Zhang Yumei sneered. Gu Qianyan overheard all of this. Zhou Zhou was waiting anxiously in the car. After what had just happened, he was truly worried about Gu Qianyan going to see that family of three alone. When he saw Gu Qianyan's figure appear, he finally breathed a small sigh of relief. "Xiao Xiao, are you okay?" Gu Qianyan said she was fine. She took out the hair she had plucked from Gu Diheo's head, then pulled out one of her own. "Take these 2 hairs and secretly get a paternity test done for me." Zhou Zhou was stunned for a moment, then his eyes widened in horror. "You suspect?" Gu Qianyan looked at him without speaking. "It really needs to be tested. How could a biological father commit such a beastly act against you?" To you, Gu Qianyan said. "Zhang Yumei and Gu Diheo trust Yang Shui a lot. I'm afraid it won't be easy to replace her." Gu Qianyan lowered her eyelids and sneered. "It's not up to them. I'm replacing her tonight." By the time Gu Qianyan arrived at the commercial shoot location, her manager, Yang Shui, was already waiting for her in the garage. "Gu Qianyan, are you kidding me? What time is it? You're about to be late. Do you know I just got chewed out by the sponsor because of you?" In the past, this was Gu Qianyan's status in the team. No one respected her, especially this manager, Yang Shui, who used to hit and curse her at will. It was only in recent years that she stopped hitting and only cursed. Communicating with the brand, isn't that your job? You failed to communicate properly and got scolded, and now you think you're in the right? Gu Qianyan showed no weakness. If you feel this job is wronging you, you can leave immediately. Yang Shui was stunned, looking at Gu Qianyan in disbelief. "What did you just say?" Yang Shui immediately exploded. "Gu Qianyan, you're rebelling. Watch who you're talking to." If they weren't in a public place, she would have slapped Gu Qianyan across the face. "What a cheap slut, daring to get cocky with me. Of course I know who you are." Gu Qianyan walked up to Yang Shui, leaned in, and whispered very softly in her ear, "Aren't you just my dad's secret little lover?" Yang Shui was petrified on the spot. Gu Qianyan took in her reaction and smiled contemptuously. Before Yang Shui could react, Gu Qianyan was already walking inside on her high heels, full of presents. As soon as the brand staff saw her, they immediately swarmed around her. Meanwhile, in an office on the second floor of the shooting location, Si Bei, the vice president of a luxury goods group, stood before the floor-to-ceiling window. He watched the real-time footage of the shoot displayed on the screen opposite him, his charming peach blossom eyes full of nonchalance. Worthy of the pure Tianho, her smile is so sweet. After speaking, he glanced at the person standing beside him. That person was tall and upright, with a face so handsome it seemed God-given. His face showed little expression. His gaze fell upon the busy crowd on the set, locking onto Gu Qianyan. Si Bei raised an eyebrow and asked, "Gong Yi, where were you yesterday? You didn't even answer your phone." Gong Yi showed no reaction, merely clenching the diamond earrings in his palm subconsciously. Brother Gong Yi, look at your little sweetheart, too." At this moment, a man who had been lounging on the sofa suddenly sprang up, pounced at Gong Yi's feet, and hugged his long legs. "I've already bankrupted 3 companies. My dad said if I fail again this time, he's going to marry me off to an African chief's daughter in exchange for a diamond mine. Brother Gong Yi, please save me." Yin Chengxing wailed. "Brother, save your little sweetheart, brother." Gong Yi spoke unhurriedly. Hiregu Kiaonyin. "If you can sign her as a mentor, my video platform will heavily promote your show next season. Also, I'll join your show as a contestant." The two of them were momentarily stunned, looking at Gong Yi in horror. On the other side, the shoot didn't end until the early hours of the morning. Xiao Xiao had ordered a late-night snack early on, and it was delivered right after the shoot ended. When the bill was presented to Yang Shui, her face turned green. Gu Qianyan. Then, she cordially greeted the staff and followed Yang Shui to the dressing room. As soon as they entered, Yang Shui immediately closed and locked the door. "Gu Qianyan, have you gone mad today? You just spent over 10,000 of my money." "It's my money. What are you so anxious about?" Gu Qianyan retorted nonchalantly. "Compared to the money my dad secretly spent on you, what's this little bit?" Yang Shui instantly exploded. "Yang Shui, my mom went through thick and thin with my dad. She treated you like her best friend, but you secretly got together with her husband behind her back. She was so good to you. You can't be so heartless. Stop being the other woman. Leave my father. I can give you a lot of money. I'm begging you, don't hurt my mother. Don't destroy our beautiful, happy family." Gu Qianyan clutched her slapped cheek, watching as Yang Shui's initial arrogance vanished completely. Tears instantly rolled down her face. Every word was heart-wrenching. suppressing the shame and anger in her heart. Yang Shui stared at Gu Qianyan and sneered. Gu Qianyan, get it straight. It's your dad who's crazy about me. He's the one who can't leave me. Let me be honest with you. Gu Diheo stopped loving Zhang Yume long ago. She's old and fat. How could she compare to me? I won't let you talk about my mom like that. You break up with my dad right now. Immediately, Gu Qianyan was instantly furious. Or else I'll expose your affair. Fine, go expose it. Go ahead right now. Do you have any proof? Who would believe you? Yang Shui raised her hand and arrogantly patted Gu Qianyan's cheek a few times. I'm Zhang Yume's best friend and one of the people she trusts the most. Do you think she'll believe you or me? Gu Qianyan thought for a moment, her face gradually turning pale, as if she were genuinely frightened by Yang Shui. She slowly lowered her head, trembling all over, reverting to her former timid appearance. Yang Shui's face was full of ridicule. Just then, the makeup artist's voice came from outside. Why is the door locked? Do you know what to say about the injury on your face? Yang Shui asked fiercely, pinching Gu Qianyan's chin. I accidentally bumped into it myself, Gu Qianyan replied. Yang Shui sneered and patted Gu Qianyan's cheek again. I'll settle today's score with you later. Gu Qianyan kept her head down and said nothing, looking terrified. Idiot! Yang Shui cursed contemptuously and turned to leave. The door closed again. Yang Shui seemed to be explaining something to the person outside. Gu Qianyan pressed her tongue against her slapped cheek. The timidity on her face vanished instantly. She walked expressionlessly toward the corner. She reached out and removed a tiny hidden camera from a green plant. Then, Gu Qianyan put on sunglasses, a face mask, and a baseball cap, covering herself up completely, and took the elevator to the garage. Just as the elevator doors were about to close, they were blocked by a large, well-defined hand. Gu Qianyan lowered her head and subconsciously stepped to the side. Then in her peripheral vision, she saw a pair of long legs and black trousers step in. A scent wafted past Gu Qianyan's nose. She froze. Hey, this scent is so familiar. It was as if many R-rated scenes flashed through her mind like lightning. It's Diamond Baby. She hesitated for a moment, then quickly walked out of the elevator, wanting to confirm. Just as she chased out of the elevator lobby, she saw the tall, upright back of a man in a dark black suit getting into a Phantom. Gu Qianyan was stunned for a moment, then breathed a sigh of relief. Wrong person. I thought you had already left, Gu Qianyan said sullenly. Didn't something happen to Qianqian? Zhang Yume asked me to go check on her. After a pause, Yang Shui sneered and said, Zhang Yume said you set Gu Qianqian up. It doesn't look like it was you. It was probably Qianqian herself who wanted to curry favor with President Jin and take your place. Then, Gu Qianyan showered her with praise. Yang Shui enjoyed this kind of praise, her expression becoming even more smug and arrogant. It's good that you know I'm smart. Don't try to play tricks on me in the future. Gu Qianyan nodded. Seeing her submissive appearance, Yang Shui's expression grew even more mocking and triumphant. The nanny van sped through the night. Not long after, Gu Qianyan received a message. Got it. She read it with a blank expression, then deleted the message history. When the nanny van arrived at the hospital, Zhang Yume was already waiting. Seeing her, Yang Shui looked at Gu Qianyan with a triumphant expression. See that? She relies on me so much. After her daughter's incident, she's so eager to see me that she came to pick me up personally. Do you think she'll believe you or me? Gu Qianyan raised her eyes, her beautiful pupils veiled with an unreadable smile. Who knows? Yang Shui opened the car door and got out. Dearest, you must have been terrified. I was so busy today, and Gu Qianyan was being disobedient, causing me a lot of trouble. Who knew that with a loud smack, Zhang Yume would swing a slap at her? It was exceptionally loud. Yang Shui staggered back 2 steps from the slap before steadying herself. She clutched her cheek, seeing stars. Zhang Yume lunged forward and grabbed Yang Shui. I treated you like a good sister, fed you, clothed you, and you slept with my man. I'm old and ugly, right? You're beautiful, right? I'm gonna beat all the implants out of your body today. Let's see how beautiful you, this plastic surgery monster, can be. I didn't, Yume. Calm down. Yang Shui was terrified. While dodging Zhang Yume's slaps, she tried to explain. At that moment, she caught a glimpse of Gu Qianyan sitting in the car, watching her with a playful smile. Yang Shui knew Gu Qianyan must have done something. She quickly shouted it was her. I didn't say that. She's lying. I treat Qianqian like my own daughter. How could I say that about her? Gu Qianyan, what are your intentions in framing me like this? Yang Shui cried out. The mother didn't think her daughter had the brains for this. If it weren't for the fact that someone had been interviewed in that dressing room earlier, and left a camera behind without removing it. And this person happened to be the mother's friend. After seeing the video, he immediately sent it to the mother. With that, Zhang Yumei slapped Yang Shui a few more times. Then, completely enraged, her eyes red with anger, she grabbed Yang Shui's hair and shoved the phone right at her face. She played a video. This video was none other than everything that had happened in the dressing room a short while ago. In the end, Yang Shui was beaten to the ground. As she left, Gu Qianyan let out a soft laugh. Is this the trust you were talking about? After watching the video, Zhang Yumei clearly hadn't expected that the timid Gu Qianyan, who usually didn't even dare to breathe too loudly, would actually negotiate with Yang Shui to protect her. When did you find out these two animals got together? Zhang Yumei asked. The last time I went to Europe for a magazine shoot. I ran into them in the restroom. I was afraid you'd be heartbroken if you found out. So I went to find Sister Yang, hoping to persuade her to leave Dad before you found out. Gu Qianyan was like a child who had done something wrong, her voice getting lower and lower. Also, I'm a little worried that after that scene just now, she might take revenge on me while she's still my manager. Zhang Yumei said hurriedly, we need to change a manager. Immediately. Mom, have you thought about who to replace her with? Gu Qianyan asked. What about Zhou? He's young and honest, not too cunning. You be able to control him too? Gu Qianyan suggested softly. Zhang Yumei thought for a moment. In her eyes, Zhou was just a recent graduate, cheap labor. Indeed, not much of a threat. We'll use him temporarily to replace that bitch. I'll find you a new manager tomorrow. It's enough that you know Mom is good to you and that it's not easy for Mom. In the future, if your dad and I have a falling out and get a divorce, you should know who to follow, right? Zhang Yumei held Gu Qianyan's hand, showing unprecedented affection. If things go south, they might very well split up. So she had to secure Gu Qianyan this cash cow. Even though it was late at night, Zhou still took several consecutive calls from partners. He was still a bit dazed. Just like that, the manager was changed? Gu Qianyan sat in the passenger seat, slowly eating fried chicken. But Zhou said heartlessly, stop eating. You've already had 2 pieces. You'll get fat. I don't have to work for the next few days. It's fine to indulge a little, Gu Qianyan said indistinctly while eating. This isn't over yet. Yang Shui is just the beginning. The main event is next. The next day, the news that Gu Qianyan was disfigured reached her parents' ears. Zhou instantly understood. This was what Gu Qianyan meant when she said she wouldn't have work for the next few days. When Gu Diheo heard disfigured, he felt like the sky was falling. At this time, the doctor came in. The swelling is from a metal allergy, plus the person who hit her was too heavy-handed. That's why it's like this. When Gu Diheo and his wife heard it wouldn't be disfiguring, they both breathed a sigh of relief. But she only got slapped once. How did she get a metal allergy? Gu Diheo asked, confused. Go ask the person who hit her. How would I know? The doctor, clearly unable to stand seeing Gu Qianyan beaten like this, answered irritably. Inside the room, Zhang Yumei pointed at Gu Qianyan's face and roared at Gu Diheo, look at the fine work of the mistress you're keeping. Gu Diheo looked at Gu Qianyan with a deep gaze. She looked to be in a very poor mental state. He then asked his mother to speak more quietly outside. Inside the room, Zhou looked closely at Gu Qianyan's face and then said in a low voice, what female celebrity is as ruthless as you? What if you really get disfigured? I know what I'm doing, Gu Qianyan said softly. After all, she's a female star. Unless absolutely necessary, she wouldn't risk harming her own face. She now had to clear some of her schedule to rearrange her upcoming work. She also had to give Zhou time to build a new team. Most importantly, during this time, she had to act swiftly and decisively to deal a heavy blow to her black-hearted parents and their family. A blow so heavy that they wouldn't be able to cause trouble for her for a short time. As soon as she finished speaking, her phone vibrated. Zhou said, it's that talent show again. I've already clearly rejected them twice. A boy band talent show is such an old-fashioned thing. Zhou shook his head. It says it's airing on Huanying next quarter. I think we should just reject it directly. Produced by Huanying? Gu Qianyan was shocked. She said decisively, this will be a hit. Not only will it be a hit, but this batch of contestants will also produce a top-tier celebrity and several energetic artists, nourishing more than half of the entertainment industry. Among them were 2 artists that Zhou would later manage, as well as the scumbag Yu Wei who betrayed her in her past life. Zhou looked at Gu Qianyan blankly. Gu Qianyan thought for a moment and said, since we decided to break free from them, it's time to overturn the pure Tianhou persona. This variety show is an excellent opportunity, but there are a few small conditions. Then, Jojo took the other party's call and said she couldn't be an idol mentor. She wanted to participate in the recording as a producer. There's one more condition. When signing the contract, you must pay us 70 of the fee up front in one lump sum. If you can accept these two conditions, we can sign the contract immediately. Jojo said this, bracing himself, but the other side agreed in one go. Yin Changsheng had no idea that his excessive excitement had already aroused the suspicion of the human peach. After he hung up, he immediately told Gong gleefully, "Young Master Gong, I've plucked the human peach for you. Big Brother spent 3 times the price to get this peach for you. Don't forget what you promised Big Brother." Human peach? Gongyi was puzzled. That's what her fans call her, Yin Changsheng explained. On the other side, Jojo and Gu Qianyan felt that something was strange. They had agreed to such outrageous demands. However, Gu Qianyan didn't think much of it. She just reminded him to keep the contract signing confidential and not let Zhang Yumei know. Outside the room, the couple was arguing nonstop. Zhang Yumei's eyes were wide with anger, and she was about to lash out again when Gu Diheo's phone rang. The two of them initially thought it was Yang Shui calling again. Gu Diheo was about to hang up without even looking. Fortunately, Zhang Yumei's sharp eyes stopped Gu Diheo. "Don't hang up, it's President Jin." Gu Diheo took a closer look. It was indeed President Jin's call. He broke out in a cold sweat. Why is he calling? Could he have discovered something? Just then, Gu Qianyan happened to walk out of her room. Zhang Yumei started wailing. "President Jin just called. He said he misses you terribly, so he wants us to arrange another meeting the day after tomorrow. With your face injured like this, if he sees you, the 300 million will definitely be gone." Gu Qianyan watched Zhang Yumei's tantrum, her heart turning ice cold. That fat pig has other women. Can't he just find one to let off some steam? Gu Diheo said angrily, "You have the nerve to say that? If it weren't for that mistress, would her face have ended up like this? Will we be in such a hurry?" Zhang Yumei cursed. "You good-for-nothing who only messes things up. Dad, Mom, please stop fighting. There's still a way to solve this." Gu Qianyan coaxed softly. "What way?" Gu Diheo and his wife immediately looked at Gu Qianyan, their eyes suddenly brightening several degrees. Gu Qianyan lowered her head and said helplessly in a small voice, "I was reading a script before and saw the male and female leads play that kind of game. There's one where you can use props to cover your face. Why don't we tell President Jin that I want to play something different with him? I just don't know if he'd be willing." Gu Diheo was stunned for a moment, then clapped his hands in amazement. "Brilliant! Why didn't I think of that? That fat pig President Jin loves these kinds of tricks. If you take the initiative to suggest it, he'll be 1,000,000% willing. Since this is settled, you should rest well for the next 2 days. Keep your spirits up. Don't run around," Zhang Yumei said, glancing at Gu Diheo. Then she waved at Gu Qianyan. "Go back to your room and rest." After Gu Qianyan woke up, she heard a commotion downstairs. Limping, she started to go downstairs. Halfway down, she overheard the conversation between Gu Qianyan and her parents. Seeing her parents heave a sigh of relief and look very happy, Gu Qianyan asked sourly, "Aren't you celebrating a bit too early? She hasn't even gotten into President Jin's bed yet. What if she runs away again like last time? There's always a what if. Let's have a backup plan," Gu Qianyan said gravely. "What kind of backup plan?" Gu Diheo asked. "Knock her out with anesthetic beforehand. After confirming it's her, hand her over to President Jin's people personally. That way, no matter what she tries, she won't be able to escape." Gu Qianyan overheard this as well. She immediately sent a message to Jojo. "They're about to make their move. Go and help me take care of a few things. The weather is turning cold. It's time to send them a big gift." Perhaps because of the big commotion, the Gu Diheo couple went to bed especially early tonight. Before 9 o'clock, snores could be heard coming from their respective rooms. Just then, a figure entered the house and picked up a phone. Then, sobbing, the person imitated Gu Qianyan's voice and said, "Yang Shui just called me again. She said if she doesn't see you and Mom in an hour, she'll expose all the illegal things you've done and take you down with her." "What?" Zhang Yumei exclaimed. "Is that woman crazy?" The Gu Diheo couple then left the house. They hurriedly instructed Gu Qianyan, "Xiao Xiao, you and your sister stay at home. Mom and I will be back soon." A moment after the car drove away, Gu Qianyan turned around and walked slowly upstairs with light steps. The Gu Diheo couple was solely focused on whether they could successfully send her to be toyed with by President Jin tomorrow. They didn't notice that upstairs, Gu Qianqian had already fallen into the trap after lunch. Gu Qianqian lay exhausted on the bed. After lunch, she had been feeling very tired, lying in bed half asleep all afternoon. She had just woken up and was resting with her eyes closed, leaning against the pillow. Suddenly, the door creaked open. In this house, Gu Qianyan was not allowed to go to the second floor. She actually dared to come up so brazenly and even enter her room. Gu Qianqian's temper flared up instantly. "Bitch, who let you into my room? Get out." Gu Qianqian grabbed the water glass from the bedside table and threw it directly at Gu Qianyan. Gu Qianyan sidestepped lightly to dodge it. The glass hit the door and shattered. "This house was bought with my money. I can go wherever I please," Gu Qianyan said slowly. "Where are Mom and Dad?" Gu Qianqian shouted as she threw off the covers to get out of bed. But as soon as she stood up, an overwhelming wave of dizziness hit her, and she fell back onto the bed. They went out. Gu Qianyan looked down at Gu Qianqian. "I knew you wouldn't dare show your true colors in front of them. You only dared to shout at me. What, you think I'm young and easy to bully, is that it?" Gu Qianqian gritted her teeth, forced herself to stand up, and raised her hand to slap Gu Qianyan. Gu Qianyan easily grabbed her wrist and raised an eyebrow with a smile. "Don't be in such a hurry. Your parents won't be able to escape either. I'll bully all of you, one by one, to the very end." Gu Qianqian looked at Gu Qianyan and suddenly felt a little scared. Usually, she was the one who bullied Gu Qianyan, and Gu Qianyan was the one who was afraid of her. Now, she suddenly felt fear towards Gu Qianyan. Gu Qianqian instantly felt she had lost face. Gu Qianyan looked at her and suddenly started laughing. Her laugh was extremely beautiful, but it still made Gu Qianqian's blood run cold. Gu Qianyan then flung her hand away, and Gu Qianqian fell onto the bed. Gu Qianyan walked to Gu Qianqian's drawer and pulled it open. Inside were 4 boxes of medicine, neatly arranged. Gu Qianyan took out 1 box of medicine from the drawer. After fiddling with it for a while, she injected the drug into her sister's body. Once done, she went downstairs while taking her phone out of her pocket. She quickly sent a pre-edited message to President Jin. Then, she returned to her room, grabbed her things, and walked straight to the main door. Zhou grabbed Gu Qianyan's things, and they sped off. On the other side, the parents had finished their business. After spending some effort on Yang Shui, they finally remembered about President Jin and rushed home. They pushed open the door and searched frantically, but sure enough, they couldn't find Gu Qianyan. Gu Diheo thought Gu Qianyan had just run away, but he never expected that something even more devastating, infuriating, and unexpected was waiting for him. And just like that, President Jin's call came. He was on his way. The father answered President Jin's call. A voice came from the other end. "I'll be there in 10 minutes. Make sure you're ready." Upon hearing this, the mother's face instantly showed a look of panic. She hurriedly said, "What? 10 minutes? What are we going to do?" The family of 3 was thrown into a panic, at a loss for what to do. The mother couldn't help but complain, "That abominable girl, Gu Qianyan. Not only did she scheme to make us argue with Yang Shui, but she also tricked us into leaving so she could run away." But with President Jin about to arrive, if he didn't see Gu Qianyan, he would surely fly into a rage. At that point, their family would likely suffer dire consequences, perhaps even a devastating disaster. Just then, the father came up with a plan. His gaze shifted to his own biological daughter, Gu Qianqian, a ruthless glint flashing in his eyes. He said to her, "Qianqian, Gu Qianyan just wants to see our family of 3 offend President Jin and have him cut off her livelihood. We can't let her scheme succeed. For the sake of our family, you'll have to sacrifice yourself again. Anyway, you've already had contact with President Jin once before. One more time won't make much of a difference." After speaking, the father tightly gripped his daughter's wrist. He took a syringe from the drawer and, without hesitation, jabbed it towards Gu Qianqian, while comforting her, "Good girl, don't worry. After this is over, Dad will definitely capture Gu Qianyan and let you deal with her as you please." Gu Qianqian screamed, "No, no." But her body was gradually losing strength, and her resistance was futile. Seeing this, The mother also rushed over to help. Together, they plunged the needle into Gu Qianqian's body. Before long, Gu Qianqian passed out. The father personally put a blindfold on her, took out those kinky little props, and even carefully tucked in rose petals. As he worked, he secretly felt relieved. Good thing there's a mask to cover her face, or the secret would be out. After everything was ready, the two of them hurried downstairs to welcome President Jean. As soon as the door opened, their faces were immediately plastered with fawning smiles. The father said respectfully, "President Jean, everything is arranged. Please come in." The mother, meanwhile, stood behind him with a nervous expression, muttering under her breath, "What are we going to do now?" The father gritted his teeth and swore to himself that he must find a way to get that girl. He absolutely couldn't let it go. On the other side, Zhou had already prepared a new apartment for Gu Qianyan. The security there was excellent, and many celebrities chose to live there. Gu Qianyan said gratefully to Zhou, thank you for your hard work." Zhou replied, "It was no trouble. Your timing was perfect. Over the past few days, I've managed to reset all the bank cards and the studio account passwords. They don't have a single card in their hands now. They won't be able to use or exploit you anymore. But now that you've left like this, what kind of reaction do you think they'll have?" Gu Qianyan's lips curved slightly into a faint smile. She said, "They'll probably have to make a difficult choice between the 300 million investment and their daughter." Then she said to Zhou, "Tomorrow morning, I'm going to Dr. Chen's to have my wound checked. Leak my whereabouts half an hour in advance." Zhou was very surprised to hear this. With a puzzled look, he said, "Shouldn't we be trying to hide as much as possible right now? Why would we proactively leak our location?" Gu Qianyan gently patted Zhou's shoulder and explained with a smile, "Hiding is so boring. Just wait and watch the good show tomorrow. See how I make a beautiful comeback against the odds." The next day, Gu Qianyan arrived at the hospital. She was chatting warmly with Dr. Chun, saying gratefully, "Dr. Chun, thank you for always taking care of me. You were the one who treated my injuries before." However, just then, her parents rushed over, shouting Gu Qianyan's name loudly. Seeing them, Gu Qianyan immediately put on a pitiful act, clinging tightly to Dr. Chen's arm and pleading in a tearful voice, "Dr. Chun, save me." The moment Gu Qianyan saw the two of them, she hid behind Dr. Chun with a terrified expression, her body trembling. "I have nothing to do with you anymore. You can have the house and the cars. I'm not asking for anything. Just let me go," Gu Qianyan said in a tearful voice. Gu Diheo was stunned for a moment, then flew into a rage. "Let you go? We'll talk about that after you're dead. While I still have some patience. Get over here now. Don't go too far." Dr. Chen scolded. "This is none of your business. We're disciplining our daughter." Zhang Yumei lost her patience and shouted as she lunged to grab Gu Qianyan. Dr. Chen raised his hand to block her, and his hand was instantly scratched by Zhang Yumei, drawing blood. Seeing this, Gu Qianyan asked anxiously, "Dr. Chen, are you all right?" "Shrew, unreasonable shrew." Dr. Chen was a skilled physician and quite well known locally. Usually, every patient treated him with respect. Being suddenly scratched by Zhang Yumei, he became furious. He shouted loudly, "Security? Where's security? Call the police. Call the police immediately. Arrest these two people for me." "Dr. Chun, don't," Gu Qianyan started to plead. "Miss Gu, since you've already decided to break away from these two, don't be soft-hearted towards them anymore," Dr. Chen said, looking disappointed in her. "I know. I'll talk to them one last time." Gu Qianyan looked at the Gu Diheo couple. "Don't shout in front of Dr. Chun. He's a good person. If you have something to say, let's go over there. Let's make things clear once and for all today." With that, Gu Qianyan walked directly to a quiet corner behind the clinic. Dr. Chen looked very worried. The Gu Diheo couple sneered at him and hurried after her. "Gu Qianyan, you're quite the actress. You think finding some third-rate doctor to protect you will make you free?" Zhang Yumei said, gritting her teeth. "By my calculations, it should be almost over on Qianqian's end. Aren't you going back to see if she's dead or alive? What's the use of wasting your breath on me?" Gu Qianyan's previous fragility vanished, her eyes and words filled with mockery. "Bitch, how dare you say that?" Zhang Yumei said, about to strike. Gu Diheo held her back. "Why are you so angry? Weren't you the ones who sent Gu Qianqian to be toyed with by President Jean last night?" Gu Qianyan's face was full of ridicule. "Who would have thought you'd be so shameless for money that you wouldn't even spare your own daughter?" Gu Diheo's face was flushed red with anger. He suppressed the urge to strangle Gu Qianyan. "Gu Qianyan, I'll say this one last time. Come back with me immediately. Don't force me to use extreme measures. What extreme measures do you want to use? What extreme measures can you use? Those thugs you hang out with every day, or President Jean? Gu Qianyan sneered, looking as if she didn't take Gu Diheo seriously at all. Do you dare to go to President Jean? Do you dare to let him know you used a fake Gu Qianyan to scam him out of 300 million? Gu Diheo, stop bluffing in front of me. I'm not scared at all. With this time, you'd be better off going home and thinking hard about how much longer you can use Gu Qianqian to deceive President Jean. Gu Diheo was an extremely short-tempered and conceited person. Gu Qianyan knew his every trigger point. Every single word she had just said had stomped hard on Gu Diheo's pride. Just as Gu Qianyan turned to leave, the enraged Gu Diheo yanked her back and gave her a vicious slap across the face. Gu Qianyan cried out and was instantly knocked to the ground. After being a top star for a few years, you've really forgotten your place, haven't you? Daring to shout in front of me. You got a death wish, don't you? Gu Diheo roared, then kicked Gu Qianyan. Honey, don't waste your breath on her. Let's drag her home first and then deal with her harshly, Zhang Yumei said viciously. Gu Diheo gritted his teeth and was about to grab Gu Qianyan's hair to pull her up. Before he could touch Gu Qianyan, Zhou's startled cry suddenly rang out. The Gu Diheo couple subconsciously turned their heads and saw Zhou rushing towards them with several police officers. Zhou quickly ran forward, pushed aside the still-dazed Gu Diheo, and shielded Gu Qianyan with his body. He said anxiously, Gu Diheo, are you even human? It's bad enough you abuse her at home, but now her face hasn't even healed, and you dare to hit her in public? Officer, please save Qiao Qiao. If she's taken away by this black-hearted couple today, who knows what terrible things await her. On the other side, Dr. Chun, who had heard the commotion, also ran over with security guards. Gu Diheo yelled arrogantly, Little bitch, stop acting. I only slapped her once and kicked her. That's all. She won't die from that. The arriving police officer had a stern expression and shouted at the arrogant Gu Diheo couple. Just then, Zhou let out a heart-wrenching scream, and everyone's attention shifted. Dr. Chun, Qiao doesn't seem to be breathing. A nearby police officer was quick to react and immediately pinned Gu Diheo down. Dr. Chen also quickly took charge of Gu Qianyan. Around the same time, the hashtag. He no longer had the imposing air he had when he beat Gu Qianyan in the morning. She's dead set on rebelling now. Let's hurry back, get her cards and passbooks, and transfer all the money and investments in her name to our own. However, bad news soon came crashing down like a boulder from the sky. The Gu Diheo couple rushed home, only to be confronted by President Jean as soon as they walked in the door. Zhang Yumei gasped. The two of them had been played for fools by Gu Qianyan, completely forgetting about the situation at home. They saw Gu Qianqian, her face bruised and swollen, her body covered in bruises, almost completely naked and tied with ropes to a chair like an animal. The Gu Diheo couple looked in the direction of the voice, and in an instant felt their insides twist in terror. They saw the fat-headed, big-eared President Jean, every fold of flesh on his face highlighting his fury. Gu Diheo, I gave you face and spent 300 million to buy Gu Qianyan, and you have the audacity to trick me with an imposter. President Jean roared, having clearly discovered that the person he slept with last night was not Gu Qianyan at all. In his fury, President Jean had given the imposter a brutal beating, then tied her up and threw her in the living room, waiting for Gu Diheo to return. President Jean, there's a misunderstanding. Please let me explain. Gu Diheo, so scared he almost wet his pants, said urgently as he groveled on the floor. Explain? How do you want to explain? Do you know how much face I've lost because of this? Without another word, President Jean grabbed a nearby table lamp and smashed it directly at Gu Diheo. Gu Diheo couldn't even dodge, and his head was split open. This is all Gu Qianyan's doing. She hates us for not treating her well, so she deliberately pretended to like you. Hemi set things up and then slipped away when we weren't looking. Her sister took her place, all to make you misunderstand and think we were tricking you. She wants to use your hand to get rid of our family of 3. President Jean, you're a smart man. Think about it carefully. With your status, how would I dare to deceive you? Gu Diheo cried out hoarsely. President Jean gritted his teeth, his expression softening slightly. Thinking about it, it seemed Gu Diheo really had no reason or guts to do such a thing. President Jean, what my husband said is all true. Have you seen the news online today? This is her revenge on us. Before we came back, we were even taken to the police station. We were almost locked up. Zhang Yumei also cried out. I suppose you don't have the guts to trick me, President Jean said with a cold laugh. Zhang Yumei hated Gu Qianyan to the bone. She no longer cared what would happen to her family of 3. All she could think was that even if she died, she had to drag Gu Qianyan down with her. She swallowed hard, then said to President Jean through her tears, "This morning, we originally wanted to catch her and bring her back to give you an explanation. But who would have thought?" Gu Qianyan opened her mouth and said many nasty things. She insulted you, saying you were a toad lusting after a swan's flesh, that you were not worthy of her at all. My husband got furious after hearing that, which is why he hit her. A toad lusting after a swan's flesh? President Jin's fat hand slowly clenched into a fist. The flesh on his face twitched, and his eyes grew even more sinister and frightening. Yes, and she said many other awful things that I don't dare repeat in front of you, Zhang Yumei said, wiping her tears. I never thought she was this kind of person, using you to get rid of our family on one hand, while looking down on you and trampling on you on the other. Shut up. President Jean was extremely concerned with his pride. He knew he wasn't good-looking and had been rejected by women often before he got rich. After making his fortune, he had enough confidence to specifically seek out those seemingly unattainable women to play with. She says I'm a toad, lusting after a swan's flesh? I'll pluck this swan's feathers bare right now and see what she has to be proud of. After President Jean finished speaking, he furiously kicked over the coffee table in front of him. On the other side, after Yin Changcheng signed Gu Qianyan, he was acting as if he was on steroids. His phone started vibrating endlessly next to his ear. It's bad. Her reputation has really collapsed. Gu Qianyan was hospitalized due to domestic violence. I heard she's still unconscious, and they're trying to save her. I saw the video of her being abused. It looks like her face was disfigured too, the assistant on the other end of the line said in horror. Yin Changcheng sobered up instantly. What a beast! Yin Changcheng was a young master who had a soft spot for beautiful women. He couldn't stand seeing a young lady being beaten like that and instantly blew up. He then immediately forwarded the video to Gong Yi and sent a message. Gu Qianyan was beaten by her dad and is in the hospital. Gong Yi replied immediately, hospital entrance in 5 minutes. The two of them arrived at the hospital room and lured Zhou Zhou away, allowing Gong Yi to successfully enter the room. He saw Gu Qianyan's small face, bruised and swollen. Just as Gong Yi was leaving, Gu Qianyan woke up. She was suddenly in a daze. A blurry image faintly appeared in her mind. She was lying in a hospital bed, and a tall man was standing by her side, silhouetted against the light. After Gong Yi came out, he decided to investigate this matter thoroughly. Inside the hospital room, Zhou Zhou rushed in again, shouting, "This is bad. Zhang Yumei is up to her tricks again." It turned out Zhang Yumei had posted a new video, tearfully accusing Gu Qianyan of being heartless. She talked about how well they had treated her since she was a child, how they had raised her, only for her to frame them for money, bully her sister, and beat her sister black and blue. Of course, the battered sister also made a brief appearance. The bruised and swollen Gu Qianyan lay on a hospital bed, with not a single patch of unblemished skin visible on her body. As soon as this video was released, it was like another bomb dropped into a lake, causing a massive explosion. The direction of public opinion online changed dramatically in an instant. But Gu Qianyan had no reaction. She just looked out the window at the sunny day and said unhurriedly, "They're about to have their faces slapped." A moment later, Gu Qianyan appeared at the entrance of the police station in a wheelchair, accepting interviews from numerous media outlets. After leaving the hospital, Gu Qianyan went straight to the police station. This move truly shocked the reporters and paparazzi who were following her. About 10 minutes later, Gu Qianyan finally came out of the police station. This time, she didn't avoid everyone's gaze as she had before. "First of all, I'm very sorry. My family's affairs these past 2 days have caused a lot of trouble for everyone," Gu Qianyan said after a slight bow. "This afternoon, my mother posted a video on social media accusing me of violently harming my sister. First, I want to deny her accusation. Second, I am very scared and confused as to why my sister was injured so badly. So, after seeing the video, I immediately rushed to the police station and officially filed a police report as the victim's older sister." As soon as she said this, the entire crowd was in an uproar. Previously, everyone had been discussing in private, wondering why Gu Qianyan hadn't come out to explain. No one expected her to be making big moves quietly and choosing to go straight to the police. Qianyan, is there anything you want to say about the issues between you and your parents? A reporter immediately asked. I'm sorry, we won't be responding to this matter for the time being. Everyone has worked hard these past few days. Next, Xiao Qiao will go home to continue recovering. The police have already opened a case regarding Xiao Qiao's sister's matter. Let's all just wait for the investigation results. After Zhou Zhou finished speaking, he pushed Gu Qianyan into the car. Inside the van, Zhou Zhou was still marveling at Gu Qianyan's beautiful counterattack. That black-hearted couple probably never would have imagined in a million years that you would go straight to the police. Gu Qianyan didn't speak, just closed her eyes to rest for a moment. Then she asked, has the paternity test result come out yet? Oh my god, these past few days have been like a war. I completely forgot about it, Zhou Zhou said, slapping his forehead. I received a lot of packages these 2 days. It should have arrived. Gu Qianyan nodded, her gaze turning to the window. It was just as Zhou Zhou had estimated. After the Gu Diheo family of 3 watched the video, they were all stunned. How dare she? Zhang Yumei was so angry she clenched her fists tightly, her nails nearly digging into her palms and drawing blood. Qianqian ended up like this because of her. Is she really not afraid of me, fighting her to the death? As soon as Zhang Yumei's words fell, Gu Diheo stood up and gave her a resounding slap. You still dare talk? This is all because you're stupid listening to that trash PR advice. Fight to the death? How are you going to fight her to the death? Gu Diheo pointed at Zhang Yumei's nose and cursed loudly. But Zhang Yumei remained relentless, clearly determined to fight to the bitter end. She thought it over and over, still feeling extremely unwilling to give up. Honey, I can't swallow this. If all else fails, let's hire a hitman to get rid of Gu Qianyan. That won't work. That old lecher, President Jean, is clearly still interested in Gu Qianyan. If she dies, what about my 300 million? Gu Diheo immediately rejected this crazy idea. We can't say this, we can't do that. What should we do if the police come knocking? Zhang Yumei asked in a panic. Gu Diheo lowered his eyelids, thought for a long time, and then slowly said, You're the one who caused this mess. You'll have to be the one to take the fall. Me? Zhang Yumei's face stiffened. In the end, Zhang Yumei actually chose to turn herself in, claiming she was the one who beat Gu Qianqian. But Gu Qianqian's injury report showed traces of SM. Now the truth was out. It's just that they didn't know that everything behind the scenes had progressed so smoothly thanks to that young master helping in secret. The mother originally thought that by stepping forward to clarify and apologize, the matter would be over. But unexpectedly, another bolt from the blue struck without warning. The final investigation found traces of SM on Gu Qianqian's body. Furthermore, a series of scandals involving Gu Qianqian from the past few years, which had not been widely circulated, were also exposed. Things like drunk driving, unprovoked assaults in bars, school bullying of poor students, and so on. Each and every one was an appalling and malicious act. Zhang Yumei was also placed under administrative detention for spreading rumors and disturbing public order. Zhou Zhou said excitedly from the side, to get President Jean out of this mess, Gu Diheo really went all out. His wife was locked up for spreading rumors, and his daughter's scandals were all dug up. A cold smile touched Gu Qianyan's lips, and she said in an icy tone, He didn't disappoint my expectations at all. After this, no matter what they say about me to the public in the future, probably no one will believe them. As he spoke, Zhou Zhou stood at the dining table holding a document, his expression grim. He then handed the report to Gu Qianyan. Gu Qianyan took it with a blank expression. She pulled it out to look. When she saw the words, the sample is not the biological father of the sample, a piercing pain shot through her temples. You're not my parents' daughter at all. They abducted you from the mountains. Your biological parents even found out, so they just killed them and buried them in a ditch. I wonder how they felt watching you sell your body and soul for all these years, making money for your enemies. In her past life, Gu Qianqian's hideous smile and shrill voice replayed like a nightmare in Gu Qianyan's mind. Anger and hatred, like a surging tide, threatened to completely engulf her in an instant. The next second, Gu Qianyan grabbed a crystal glass from the dining table and smashed it forcefully onto the ground. The glass instantly shattered. Zhou Zhou flinched in fright, but Gu Qianyan remained immersed in her anger, unable to pull herself out. She hated how foolish she had been in her past life, blinded by so-called kinship, allowing herself to suffer so much pain and torment. At this moment, Gu Qianyan's heart felt as if it were being brutally twisted by a knife, bloody and in excruciating pain. Zhou used this to write a press release responding to the matter between the Gu Diheo couple and me. Gu Qianyan said, her fists clenched tightly, her eyes filled with determination. The press release must state that the Gu Diheo couple were human traffickers in the past. I was stolen by them and was supposed to be sold. Before they could sell me, I was coincidentally scouted by an advertiser. They saw potential for profit, so they kept me by their side as a cash cow. Gu Diheo Zhang Yumei, Gu Qianqian, just you wait to go to hell. Then the hashtag. To summarize the key points of the statement, Gu Diheo is not Gu Qianyan's biological father. In view of the couple's long-term deceptive behavior and numerous malicious acts, she is hereby severing her father-daughter and mother-daughter relationships with him and Zhang Yumei. In addition, Gu Qianyan's side also cleanly attached a screenshot of the paternity test, making everything more convincing. Zhou posted a long article detailing the entire process of Gu Qianyan discovering the secret of her birth, which was not mentioned in the lawyer's letter. After Gu Diheo saw the news, without a word, he went up and gave Gu Qianqian a hard slap. Gu Qianqian was stunned by the blow. After coming to her senses, she began to scream hysterically. Gu Qianyan clearly said it was you. What are you still trying to argue? Your mother and I have spoiled you and doted on you since you were a child. How do we end up raising a menace like you? Gu Qianyan, are you her dog? You go wherever she tells you to go. Don't tell me you even want to find Yang Shui to beat her up. Gu Qianqian let out a cold laugh. Her face was covered in injuries, and this laugh made her look particularly ferocious. Gu Diheo's face turned deathly pale. He stood there for a long time, unable to snap out of it. Gu Qianqian started to chuckle. Gu Diheo, haven't you realized it yet? You're just a tool for Gu Qianyan. She's grasped your weakness and pushed things to this point. Gu Diheo's expression grew dazed. He desperately wanted to deny it, but upon careful thought, it seemed the truth was exactly as Gu Qianqian had said. Weren't all the pits he had fallen into now ones he had dug with his own hands? That bitch Gu Qianyan. Gu Diheo stomped his foot in anger. Hot search. I'm going to buy negative hot searches about her right now. Those smear articles Yang Shui wrote. It's a waste not to use them. If she won't let me have an easy time, I'll make sure she can never clear her name. However, after Gu Diheo went through the trouble with gritted teeth, he found that there were no smear articles to be found. The marketing accounts that were originally supposed to publish the articles had, at some unknown point, withdrawn them all. Moreover, they were wiped clean from the entire internet, without a single trace left behind. Gu Diheo was suddenly at a loss, completely out of ideas. I was wondering why Gu Qianyan's methods were suddenly so ruthless and her style so arrogant. So, she's found a capitalist to back her up. As Gu Qianqian spoke, she clenched her fists tightly, her eyes filled with hatred. Call President Jean. I have something to say to him, Gu Qianqian said viciously. Next, a President Jean, full of hatred, was about to make his entrance. Xiao went with Zhou to find President Jean. Zhou had a bad feeling in his gut. He felt that the man had ill intentions and that something bad would happen if they went. But who would have thought? Qianyan was extremely calm. She even said, it's precisely because he has ill intentions that I have to go. Gu Diheo wants to use President Jean to deal with me, but that depends on whether President Jean is willing. Saying this, she quickly reassured Zhou, telling him not to worry. She also revealed that she had already called many reporters over, thinking they wouldn't dare to easily lay a hand on her. Just as Qianyan was about to get out of the car, Zhou resolutely declared that he would accompany her. With a determined look, he said, since danger is unavoidable, let's face it together. Qianyan listened with tears in her eyes, moved as she said, okay. The two figures were seen slowly walking into the clubhouse. All the reporters waiting outside instantly aimed their cameras at them in unison. At this moment, a pot-bellied President Jean walked out from inside, followed by several burly men. President Jean stood before the window, looking at the swarm of reporters outside. His face turned very grim. Miss Gu, what a grand display. President Jean sneered, looking at Gu Qianyan with a hostile gaze. You think just because you called these reporters, I wouldn't dare to touch you? President Jean is a smart man. I can't think of any reason you would have to touch me. Gu Qianyan, unhurried, said with a smile, tell me about it. How did Gu Diheo and Gu Qianqian spin a story to you to make you come deal with me? President Jean frowned. Your father took 300 million from me and sold you to me, but you people used a fake to impersonate you. Isn't that reason enough for me to touch you? Gu Qianyan looked at him and said in a calm tone, President Jean, Gu Diheo is not my father. He's just a human trafficker. He cheated you out of 300 million. You should be settling the score with him. President Jean gritted his teeth, pulled out a dagger from somewhere, and slowly walked up to Gu Qianyan. Then, the cold dagger was pressed against Gu Qianyan's face. Don't think you can fob me off with your family's messy affairs. I heard the reason you're unwilling to climb into my bed is that you've already climbed into some other backer's bed. Huh? Gu Qianyan continued to look at President Jean calmly. She said unhurriedly, Mr. Jean, if I were you, I'd rather spend less effort, listen less to things others say to provoke you, get the 300 million back, and find someone willing to play with you. Don't provoke someone who can attract national attention with any small movement. After hearing this, President Jin's gaze became more discerning. But Gu Qianyan unhurriedly raised her hand. With her fair and delicate fingertips, she gently pushed the dagger away. Then she walked to the window and continued, let's just talk about today. I'm so weak. Of course, you can do whatever you want to me. Even swallowing me whole would be no problem. But have you thought about it? If I don't walk out of here, or if I leave here broken, even if it's captured by a single camera, the consequences would be unimaginable. You dare to plot against me? Mr. Jean was stunned for a moment, then flew into a rage. He lunged forward and grabbed Gu Qianyan by the neck. Gu Qianyan didn't struggle, just letting President Jean choke her. A man like President Jean, who had navigated the underworld for many years, knew very well what kind of person was the most terrifying in this world. The vicious and desperate were not scary. The determined villains were not scary. The upright and incorruptible were also not scary. What was scary were those who weren't even afraid of death. Slowly, President Jean loosened his hand. Gu Qianyan's eyes were red, but she said in a firm tone, but if you people insist on backing me into a corner, I won't just sit here and wait for death. If we're going down, we're all going down together. President Jean was seething with anger, yet he had to admit that Gu Qianyan was right. President Jin's expression turned gloomy again. Outside the door, Gu Qianqian, who had expected Gu Qianyan to be tortured by President Jean and die here, was still chuckling to herself. Who would have known that in the next second, she would see Gu Qianyan walk out completely unscathed. Moreover, the two of them even seemed to have had a pleasant conversation. Gu Qianqian looked into Gu Qianyan's eyes and felt as if she were being coiled by a cold, venomous snake. Fear spread rapidly from the bottom of her heart to her entire body. Now, Gu Qianqian had fallen into President Jin's hands again. Gu Qianyan, a shrill, short cry sounded from behind, followed by the sound of a door closing. Anyone who understood the situation knew that Gu Qianqian was done for. Just as Gu Qianyan was about to leave and was nearing the elevators, a woman's shrill scream came from behind her. Gu Qianyan subconsciously turned around and saw a woman with disheveled hair and clothes running out of a private room behind her. But just as she reached the doorway, a shirtless man who chased her out of the room grabbed her by the hair and dragged her back in. She was still shouting for help. The woman saw Gu Qianyan and screamed at him in despair. Old Qian, you're losing your touch. How could you let her run away while you were playing? The moment the private room door closed, the voices of other men and the laughter of at least 3 people could be heard from inside. Once the door was shut, the woman's cries and the men's laughter vanished simultaneously, as if the recent commotion had just been a nightmare. But the oppressive atmosphere lingering in the air was incredibly real. Gu Qianyan's face turned pale, and her breathing became a little difficult. There was a voice from the private room just now that she was all too familiar with. It belonged to someone Gu Diheo had also sold her to in the past. Ah, Chow Chow, let's go. Zhou's expression was also extremely grim. He knew in his heart that they couldn't possibly meddle in this kind of business. Lingering for even a moment longer could land them in bigger trouble. Gu Qianyan and Zhou walked towards the elevator together. At this moment, Zhou, after all, hadn't experienced too many complicated matters. A place like this was undoubtedly as terrifying as hell to him. He was scared to death, his only thought to quickly get Gu Qianyan out of this place of trouble. Ding! The elevator arrived. Chow Chow, let's go, Zhou urged anxiously. I didn't come back to live like this. Gu Qianyan looked at Zhou Zhou and said this sentence that left him completely baffled. Before Zhou Zhou could come to his senses, Gu Qianyan suddenly turned around and, with a determined gaze, walked toward the fire alarm box opposite the elevator. Chow chow. Zhou Zhou instantly got goosebumps all over and immediately rushed out of the elevator. Smash! Before Zhou Zhou could run over, Gu Qianyan picked up a fire extinguisher and shattered the glass of the fire alarm box with one blow. Then, without hesitation, she pressed the building-wide fire alarm button. As soon as the fire alarm rang, the entire clubhouse instantly descended into chaos. In the chaotic crowd, Gu Qianyan saw the woman who had been calling for help earlier. She immediately breathed a sigh of relief and hurriedly said to Zhou Zhou, "Zhou Zhou, let's go." Zhou Zhou was completely stunned by now. His mind was filled with thoughts of how they were going to explain this later. Could they even get out of this clubhouse alive? Soon, Gu Qianyan and Zhou Zhou ran to the first floor. They saw a few men who were so panicked that they ran straight out the main door in their underwear. There were also some scantily clad people, frantically looking for something to cover themselves while cursing. Where's the fire? What's on fire? Who pulled the fire alarm? President Jin, leading Gu Qianqian, ran out right after Gu Qianyan. He had just been preparing to enjoy himself, but ended up getting sprayed in the head and face with water. It was an incredibly pathetic sight. It was me. Gu Qianyan's small face was filled with panic. She looked just like an innocent, frightened little animal. I heard someone shouting for help just now, and I also heard them say there was a fire. I saw the fire alarm button, so I used the fire extinguisher to break it open and press it, thinking I could call for help. I didn't expect to cause such a huge commotion. Gu Qianyan, you did it on purpose, didn't you? Deliberately causing trouble for Mr. Jin. Gu Qianqian immediately seized the opportunity, not letting go of any chance to accuse Gu Qianyan. I didn't. Gu Qianyan put on a helpless expression, as if she couldn't defend herself. President Jin, I really did hear someone shouting. In any case, this was indeed my mistake. I will compensate for all the clubhouse's losses at full price. Can compensating for things compensate for everyone's emotional distress? Gu Qianqian asked with a sneer. You shut up. President Jin, already full of anger, raised his hand and slapped her. Right now, all he wanted was for Gu Qianyan to leave quickly and take those plagues, like the reporters gathered outside, with her. You go first. I'll handle this. We'll talk about the money later, President Jin said patiently to Gu Qianyan, urging her to leave quickly. Gu Qianyan nodded and then walked towards the main door with Zhou Zhou. As they were walking, Gu Qianyan suddenly seemed to see something and stopped in her tracks. She quickly turned her head to look. At the side door of the clubhouse, two tall, well-dressed men with outstanding temperaments were standing together. One of them was leaning close to the other, whispering something in his ear. After being reborn, Gu Qianyan had been walking on eggshells every day. She had almost forgotten about that Vajra baby from that night. She never expected to see him again at this time in this clubhouse. However, Gu Qianyan looked at the man speaking into the Vajra baby's ear, secretly pondering his profession. Appearing at a clubhouse this early in the morning with another man, and acting so intimately. Chow chow, what's wrong? Zhou Zhou gently tugged Gu Qianyan. Nothing. Let's go. Gu Qianyan immediately snapped back to reality and said, the oblivious young Master Gong, after watching Gu Qianyan leave, also prepared to leave with a dark face. He had no intention of greeting her, as he had important business to attend to. Next, he went to President Jin's room and questioned him. So it was you who bullied Gu Qianyan? In the blink of an eye, President Jin was beaten black and blue by Gong Yi and the other man, paralyzed on the floor and unable to get up. Gu Diheo rushed over from outside and anxiously asked, President Jin, are you all right? President Jin irritably lifted his eyelids. All right? Do I look all right to you? Gu Diheo, you people are really something else. You knew the person behind Gu Qianyan was Si Bei, yet you still dared to use me to go against her. The bodyguards quickly helped President Jin up. President Jin immediately gave an angry order. Make a call for me. Get people to beat Gu Diheo to death for me. Don't stop. As for Gu Qianqian on the floor, President Jin glanced at her and snorted coldly. Oomph. Since you've fallen into my hands, then serve me well to atone for your sins. When Gu Diheo gathers the 300 million for me, that's when I'll let you go. Then, Gu Diheo was beaten severely by the bodyguards. Then he was thrown outside like a rag. In the rain, Gu Diheo received a phone call. It was from Gu Qianyan. On the phone, Gu Qianyan mocked him, shouting so loudly, anyone who didn't know would think I was the one who trafficked you. Enough with the nonsense. Gu Diheo, I'm giving you half a month. Find my biological parents. Otherwise, this won't end until one of us is dead. After hanging up, Zhou couldn't help but ask Gu Qianyan, do you really think your biological parents are still alive? Gu Qianyan actually wasn't sure either, but she was just holding on to a sliver of hope that they were still alive and wanted to try looking for them. Then she asked Zhou, the person I asked you to help me find, how is the search going? Zhou took out a slip of paper and said, I found him. This is his number. Then he asked curiously, who is this person? Why did you insist that I find him after coming out of President Jin's place? Gu Qianyan was silent for a moment, then said slowly, he is someone who was once like me, a person in hell. That person was Su Lin. In her previous life, Su Lin's sister was passing by the clubhouse and was spotted by those scumbags inside. She was forcibly dragged in and ultimately died tragically. At this moment, a bruised and swollen young man dragged his injured leg and got off the bus with a numb expression. He was holding a photo frame, and one could vaguely see it was a black and white portrait of a beautiful young girl. The people getting off the bus with him saw him holding such a portrait of the deceased and all moved away in distaste. Some neighbors saw how badly he was injured and hurried over, saying with heartache, Su Lin, you went to settle scores with those scumbags again? Oh my, how did you get so hurt? Listen to your Annie. We can't afford to provoke those people. Give your sister a proper burial, then go back to school and study. You can avenge your sister after you've made something of yourself in the future. Su Lin didn't speak, just numbly opened the door and went inside. The neighbor Annie shook her head helplessly, sighed, and also turned to go home. In the dim little house, Su Lin placed his sister's portrait properly and sat on a stool, looking at it quietly for a while. His gaze slowly shifted to the 2 cans of gasoline in the corner of the living room. Make something of himself. An orphan like him could make something of himself just by studying? What a joke. However, he still had a way to get justice for his sister. No matter the cost, he had to let everyone know that those scumbags had killed his sister. Just then, Su Lin's phone rang. He glanced at it. It was an unfamiliar number. A very pleasant voice came from the other end of the line. Su Lin, I can help you. That person was Gu Qianyan. Afterwards, relying on her knowledge of those wealthy businessmen from her previous life, Gu Qianyan carefully laid a large net. She began to secretly retaliate against those businessmen. The businessmen all thought their competitors were behind it, so they all started a pattern of reporting each other. With a push from some unknown force, President Jin's clubhouse was also implicated. These businessmen could be said to have reaped what they sowed, all receiving the punishment they deserved. 10 days later, the boy band show that Si Bei was in charge of also officially began recording. Gu Qianyan's dressing room was filled with all kinds of gowns. These were all happily sent over by Yin Chengsheng, and the gowns Yin Chengsheng sent were all haute couture, each one worth a fortune. Looking at those gowns, Yin Chengsheng's reputation as a foolish big spender was solidified in Zhou's eyes. Xiao, do you think he has a crush on you? Trying to pursue you this way? After deep thought, Zhou came up with this one and only possibility. In the upstairs dressing room, a person, Su Xian, walked in. Seeing Gu Qianyan's impressive appearance, she was very displeased in her heart and actually started cursing in the dressing room. Good for nothing. Fortunately, her manager stopped her in time. The manager urged her to hurry up and do her makeup as the recording was about to start. Before the recording, Su Xian heard that Gu Qianyan had gone to the restroom, so she followed her. At this moment, she felt increasingly unhappy, secretly thinking that this scheming bitch Gu Qianyan had deliberately dressed up so extravagantly, definitely to steal her thunder. She tried hard to calm herself, walked over to Gu Qianyan's side, turned on the faucet, and pretended to wash her hands too. She said sarcastically, Gu Qianyan, you've gotten quite capable, haven't you? You had someone write those articles online to scrub my search tags and step on me, right? Gu Qianyan unhurriedly pulled out a paper towel, wiping her hands with a blank expression as she replied, Su Xian, are you this rude to all your seniors? Su Xian was stunned for a moment. In the past, whenever she encountered Gu Qianyan would always let her humiliate her. Senior? Su Xian rolled her eyes and said disdainfully, a senior who got famous off of domestic violence? Sorry, in my book, only those with actual skills count as seniors. You're nothing but a vase. A vase? I'll take that as a compliment on my looks. Gu Qianyan was completely unfazed. After throwing the used paper towel into the trash can, she turned to leave. How could Su Xian tolerate being ignored like this? She immediately chased after her, wanting to grab Gu Qianyan's arm. Gu Qianyan frowned and forcefully shook her off. Who knew that Su Xian's face would turn cold as she said, "A fool who helps a human trafficker who killed her parents make money. What are you acting so tough for in front of me?" Gu Qianyan had already reached the door, but her steps suddenly halted. Then she slowly closed the restroom door. Say that again. Gu Qianyan turned around, her gaze so cold it was chilling. Did I say something wrong? Although Su Xian was a little scared, she still forced a cold laugh. Your adoptive parents are human traffickers, and they even killed your biological parents. Didn't your own manager say so? She still felt that Gu Qianyan definitely wouldn't dare to do anything to her. Gu Qianyan didn't speak, just slowly walked toward Su Xian. In the next second, Gu Qianyan grabbed Su Xian's neck with one hand. Su Xian froze instantly, shouting in panic, "Gu Qianyan, are you trying to kill someone? This is the recording venue. If I scream, someone will come over immediately. Su Xian, you've gone far enough." Gu Qianyan leaned close to Su Xian and said, word by word, your little secrets. Do you really think no one knows? Who is it that promoted you? How many people have touched this body of yours? Have you counted? Su Xian looked at Gu Qianyan in shock, then, furious from the humiliation, raised her hand to scratch Gu Qianyan's face. Gu Qianyan was quick. She grabbed that hand and slammed it toward the ground. Su Xian felt a sharp pain and was just about to scream for help when Gu Qianyan spoke again coldly. Don't provoke me again. Otherwise, I'll make you disappear from the entertainment industry. After speaking, Gu Qianyan walked straight out without giving her another look. Su Xian was completely stunned. After the restroom door closed again, she couldn't hold it in any longer and burst into tears out of fear. Why is she crying? Zhou looked astonished. After all, Su Xian's fans on the internet all called her an iron-willed tough guy. They all said she was afraid of nothing and could endure hardship. Such an iron-willed tough guy could actually cry? Gu Qianyan pursed her lips and said nonchalantly, I had a chat with her. It was probably too moving. Zhou looked puzzled. This situation was too suspicious. Next, Su Xian called her manager over and whispered some instructions in his ear. Come here. When the recording starts, remember to do this. Then, the time entered the countdown. Everyone was nervous, except for Gu Qianyan, who looked calm and composed, as if the upcoming recording was just a trivial matter to her. One by one, the people before her finished their performances. Finally, it was Gu Qianyan's turn to take the stage. Click! The light above Gu Qianyan's head lit up. Standing in the center of that halo, Gu Qianyan, with her eyes slightly lowered, was as stunning and dazzling as a goddess. It was as if what she held on her shoulder was not an ordinary violin, but some kind of magical weapon capable of captivating the entire audience. Everyone's eyes were focused on her, and they unconsciously held their breath. The entire venue was so quiet you could almost hear a heartbeat. Then, Gu Qianyan's wrist moved gently. The notes, which seemed capable of plucking at heartstrings, leaped from the strings like nimble sprites dancing gracefully in the air. In an instant, an inexplicable cheer erupted from below. The cheers were full of admiration and love for Gu Qianyan's performance. But who would have known that in the next second, the violin string would snap? And all of this was Su Xian's doing behind scenes. She stood aside, smug, thinking to herself, Gu Qianyan, you didn't expect this, did you? I broke your violin. Now let's see how you, this vase, are going to perform. However, Gu Qianyan gave a wicked smile and decisively tossed the violin aside. At this moment, a beam of light happened to fall on her, and she began an impromptu dance. Now Su Xian was dumbfounded. She never would have thought that Gu Qianyan could actually dance, and dance so brilliantly at that. After the performance, thunderous applause erupted, echoing like thunder throughout the entire venue. Backstage, Gu Qianyan knew very well that this was Su Xian's doing. She said to her, so who's the real vase? This remark thoroughly angered Su Xian, but she was left speechless. After Zhou came to get Gu Qianyan, they headed backstage. As they walked, he said with lingering fear, that was terrifying just now. I thought it was going to be a disaster. Luckily, you managed to hold it all together in the end. At this moment, Gu Qianyan told Zhou to get the surveillance footage, saying firmly, the scores that need to be settled will be settled. Zhou quickly responded, then let's go change our clothes first. After the mentors finish their performances, the show will officially begin. As she spoke, Gu Qianyan passed by the trainees' dressing room. she suddenly noticed a familiar figure inside, but she didn't think much of it and continued walking. Time passed bit by bit, and the trainee evaluations were already halfway through. Gu Qianyan lowered her eyes and flipped to the next page of trainee information. She habitually looked at the name first. Next up, individual trainee, Gong Yi. As soon as Gu Qianyan's voice fell, a commotion started behind her. She glanced behind her with some confusion, wondering to herself, what's the background of this Gong Yi? Why is everyone reacting like this? With curiosity, she then looked at the photo in the file. When she saw the face of the boy with a cold gaze yet unparalleled beauty, Gu Qianyan was stunned. Back when Gu Qianyan had slept with the Vajra baby, looking at his uniquely handsome face, she had even lamented internally for such a prime specimen not to enter the entertainment industry, and to be in that line of work instead is truly a great loss. And at this moment, looking at the Vajra baby on stage, she couldn't help but feel a bit dazed. She thought to herself, I actually slept with a future top star just like that, for so long after being reborn. No matter what Gu Qianyan did, she was always righteous and confident, as if nothing could make her feel flustered or afraid. Only now, she felt as if she had done something wrong. She quickly averted her gaze, muttering to herself incessantly, the lights weren't on that night. And I even covered his eyes with a hair tie. Gu Qianyan, be calm and composed. It's impossible for him to recognize you. She repeated this kind of psychological suggestion to herself in her mind, and only then did her originally tense nerves slowly relax. At this time, it was the mid-recording break. Zhou quickly came forward and said, we have a half-hour break. Let's go rest for a bit. Gu Qianyan agreed. You must be tired. I notice you've been a bit distracted ever since Gong Yi appeared, Zhou said, while helping Gu Qianyan down the steps. But speaking of which, Gong Yi has godlike visuals. He's an individual trainee, right? I had to find a way to lure him to our company. Hearing this, Gu Qianyan stumbled and nearly twisted her ankle, feeling a bit annoyed at herself for being so affected by Gong Yi. After returning to the recording set, Gu Qianyan went back to her seat. Xiao, after seeing so many trainees, are there any you're particularly fond of? Pei Yuxian asked Gu Qianyan. Quite a few. If that Gong Yi from earlier has well-rounded skills in other areas, he might be my first pick. Gu Qianyan responded quite generously. Putting aside what happened that night, Gong Yi's face in today's entertainment industry is an all-access pass. If his skills can keep up, his future is absolutely limitless. Our first picks are about the same. Pei Yuxian nodded. Indeed, almost all the mentors unanimously had high hopes for Gong Yi. The recording was about to begin. Su Shiyin also returned from Gong Yi's side. How'd the chat go? Rap mentor Nico asked. Pretty good. He's very gentlemanly and polite. He even asked me to teach him more in the future. As Su Shiyin said this, for some reason, she suddenly glanced at Gu Qianyan. Gu Qianyan completely ignored her. She was just looking intently. The next contestants to take the stage were the group Xbox, which was Yu Wei's group. Gu Qianyan tapped her fingertips lightly on the file twice. Unexpectedly, Yu Wei suddenly looked at Gu Qianyan with a pitiful expression and said, PD, could I trouble you to help me with something? I need a dance partner. As soon as he said this, an uproar erupted from below. Gu Qianyan lifted her eyes to look at him, thinking to herself, in my past life, this scumbag seduced me just to climb the ladder. In the end, when his reputation was in tatters, he even sent me to another man's bed. I was too stupid back then. This time, she was determined not to repeat the same mistake. I really didn't expect him to be so impatient. He's trying to seduce me right from the start. He's really good at using this tactic. I can't. This is your initial evaluation. Everyone is performing independently. If I help you, it would be unfair to everyone else. Gu Qianyan refused him without hesitation and without mercy. Do you want to continue? Gu Qianyan asked. Yu Wei didn't waste this opportunity and still completed a dance. The recording continued until 5 in the morning, finally completing the initial evaluation recording for all the trainees. Seeing how tired Gu Qianyan was, Zhou wanted her to go home and rest early. So he went ahead to get her things and arrange for a car. Gong Yi walked past her. Just as they passed each other, he suddenly stopped. He said softly, PD, I have some questions about the training camp rules. May I ask you? Gu Qianyan didn't expect him to take the initiative to speak to her. After slightly adjusting her emotions, she responded elegantly and graciously, "Of course you can. You can ask me or any mentor if you have any questions." Gong, he lowered his head a little, his lips almost touching Gu Qianyan's ear. Gu Qianyan could clearly feel his breath on her neck. Then she heard Gong Yi's soft tone, asking word by word, "Can a mentor sleep with a trainee?" The moment she heard this, for a split second, Gu Qianyan thought she was hearing things. How could he recognize her? This is impossible. After a brief moment of self-doubt, Gu Qianyan quickly took a step back, swiftly putting distance between herself and Gong Yi. Of course not. Gu Qianyan forced herself to remain calm and answered with a straight face. Thank goodness she was an actress. She thought to herself, no matter what this Vajra baby is up to, I'll just deny it to the death. Is that so? Gong Yi looked at her, a cryptic smile playing on his lips and in his eyes, as if he had seen through everything but wouldn't point it out, just watching Gu Qianyan pretend to be calm. At this moment, Gu Qianyan's heart was pounding like thunder. She prayed to all the gods and Buddhas in her heart, just hoping that Gong Yi would shut up and leave quickly. Please don't continue discussing this life-threatening topic of whether a mentor can sleep with a trainee with her. Gong Yi, you're done with your interview too? Just then, Su Xian popped up from somewhere. She walked straight up to Gong Yi, acting as if she were very familiar with him. Gu Qianyan secretly swore in her heart. No matter how much she had detested Su Xian before, at this moment, Su Xian was the most adorable person in the entire world to her. She was simply a savior who had come to her rescue. Gong Yi just gave a faint acknowledgement, then looked at Gu Qianyan again and said unhurriedly, "Thank you for your patient explanation, PD. If I have more questions next time, I'll come find you again." After speaking, Gong Yi turned and left. Gu Qianyan, you're really something. Su Xian's voice suddenly pulled Gu Qianyan out of her state of heart-pounding fear. Don't think I can't tell. You've taken a liking to Gong Yi, haven't you? Su Xian said with a face full of ridicule and a sarcastic tone. Give me a break, will you? He's only 18, and you're 23, right? What's that saying? An old cow grazing on young grass. It's not appropriate. Just let the little brother go. Miss Su, Qiao Qiao will only be 23 in August. Zhou happened to rush back at this moment. Hearing Su Xian's words, he couldn't help but correct her. It's just over a month. Is that important? Su Xian still responded with a mocking laugh. Miss Su, I just don't get it. Whether it's the smear articles you arranged or the words you're saying now, you keep harping on the age of 23. What's the matter? You personally won't live to see 23. Zhou had a smile on his face, but the words that came out were as sharp as a knife, mercilessly retorting. The smug smile on Su Xian's face immediately froze, and her expression turned very ugly. Gu Qianyan, is this how you teach your manager? Su Xian asked through gritted teeth. I'm an adult. Do I need him to teach me? Miss Su Xian, next time you open your mouth to speak, please use your brain. You think you're still young? Aren't you already 21? Zhou once again retorted without holding back. He had put up with Su Xian for long enough. How could he let Su Xian bully Gu Qianyan right in front of him? Su Xian was thoroughly infuriated. In a fit of rage and humiliation, without another word, she raised her hand and swung a slap toward Zhou. Just when he thought the slap was definitely going to land today, Gu Qianyan, with quick eyes and fast hands, grabbed Su Xian's wrist. Su Xian cried out in pain and tried to break free, but found that Gu Qianyan was holding on so tightly that she couldn't break away at all. Not only did Gu Qianyan not let go, but she stared coldly at Su Xian, tightening her grip. Su Xian immediately didn't dare to struggle anymore. She looked up at Gu Qianyan and tried to argue. It was your manager who provoked me first. Gu Qianyan's face was cold as she said icily, Did my manager also teach you to switch out my violin? After the show started recording, I went to pull the surveillance footage. Also, the footage my personal cameraman shot at the time. I can give you as much evidence as you want. Then, Gu Qianyan's tone hardened. Now it's time to talk about my losses. Next, Su Xian was both apologizing and compensating. Her pathetic appearance almost made Zhou laugh out loud. A moment later, in Gu Qianyan's nanny van, Zhou looked at the transaction record on his phone, feeling like this was all a dream. It was too incredible. Zhou, have someone investigate Jingang. No, Gunji, I want to know everything about him. Gu Qianyan officially mentioned Gong Yi. Zhou didn't find it strange at all. Instead, he said with a determined look, Gong Yi is a dark horse. We must have him. His expression was as if he could already see Gong Yi joining their company and shining brightly in the future. Zhou looked determined. He then took an iPad from his bag, quickly pulled up a file, and handed it to Gu Qianyan, his face full of pride. He said, I just looked it over carefully. This kid is clean, grew up abroad. His mother was an opera singer before she passed away, but he's also quite pitiful. Both parents are deceased. His education section is blank. He probably stopped studying after his parents passed away. Gu Qianyan carefully read all the information about Gong Yi, item by item, thinking to herself, his family must have been quite well off when he was a child. Perhaps after his parents passed away, he had no one to rely on and lost his support. Otherwise, he wouldn't have resorted to selling his body, right? How could such a good-looking child, like a deity, encounter such a tragic fate? But sympathy is sympathy. She can't take on this person, Gong Yi. After all, she slept with him, and he clearly knows about it. By coming to compete this time, she has reason to suspect that Gong Yi came specifically for her. Gu Qianyan still doesn't know what kind of person he is. Is he kind, or does he have ulterior motives? So she really doesn't want to place someone like a ticking time bomb by her side. Let's not sign him. I have a feeling that signing him will lead to big trouble. After reading the file, Gu Qianyan rubbed the bridge of her nose and said with a weary expression. Zhou's smile immediately collapsed, his face full of disbelief. A feeling? But speaking of which, Qiao's premonitions have always been very accurate. So many things before were clearly so unbelievable. But in the end, she predicted them all correctly. The excitement from just now completely vanished. Zhou said with some annoyance, I've been searching for half a month and finally found one I like. How can you just have a feeling? Let's look at others. Gu Qianyan's mind was made up. Seeing Zhou's disappointed look, she smiled and comforted him. Didn't we just make a nice sum of money? Hearing this, Zhou instantly became serious and asked worriedly, Qiao, is it really okay for us to go head-to-head with owls like this? Gu Qianyan scoffed, a ruthless glint in her eyes. She said, I just want them to know that I'm crazy. I don't play by any rules or conventions. If you mess with me, either we die together or they die alone. Ours is a big company. They won't risk a death match with a lunatic. Seeing Gu Qianyan smile, Zhou felt a chill run down his spine. He knew that once Gu Qianyan made up her mind, no one could dissuade her. Meanwhile, Bei handed a file to Gong Yi, saying, Gu Qianyan's manager had someone investigate you immediately after you started performing. They probably want to sign you to Gu Qianyan's company. This is the file prepared according to your instructions. Gong Yi crossed his long legs, his posture casual and lazy, but his tone was very certain as he said, Gu Qianyan won't agree. How do you know? Bei was full of doubt, unable to understand where he got this confidence from. She's afraid of me, Gong Yi replied lightly, a hint of smugness in his tone. Afraid of you? Bei looked baffled, his eyes wide as he asked, Does she already know who you are? I don't know, Gong Yi answered crisply. Bei was speechless for a moment, then gave a stunned laugh and said helplessly, All right then. As long as you're happy, young Master Gong. For the next few months, you'll have to live in the training camp dorms most of the time. Are you okay with that? Bei asked, still a bit worried. What misunderstanding do you have about me? Gong Yi said, looking at the hair tie in his hand with a calm expression. Have you forgotten the time I lived in a slum, crammed into a dilapidated shack with a dozen other kids? Bei straightened up and frowned subconsciously, saying, Why bring up the ancient past? As long as there's no problem. I've already had your luggage sent over. Gongyi acknowledged. The show will air in half a month. Maybe you should give your family a heads up. I'm afraid your dad will be angered to death. Bei reminded him again. It'd be for the best if he died, Gongyi said as he tied the red hair tie to his wrist. Then he got up and walked out. As he walked, he said, If there's nothing else, I'm going to the dorms. You and Yin Cheng should come around less in the future. Gong Yi, what's that thing on your wrist? Bei finally couldn't resist asking. Ever since he came in, he had seen Gong Yi holding a strip of red cloth, with no idea what it was for. To ward off evil spirits, Gong Yi replied without turning his head as he walked out the door. Ward off evil spirits? Bei didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He yelled at the already closed door, Who are you kidding? Gong Yi walked on, faintly hearing Bei's exasperated voice. He glanced down at the hair tie on his wrist, and the corners of his mouth lifted into a pleased smile. In the practice room, because Zhou had to go handle endorsement matters, he brought back the previous assistant, Tian, to accompany Gu Qianyan during the show's recording. Who knew then the next second, a voice appeared, loudly shouting Qianyan's name. Early the next morning, after a simple breakfast, Gu Qianyan headed straight for the trainees' training camp. When she arrived, Yin Chengcheng happened to be there too. As soon as Yin Chengcheng saw Gu Qianyan, he immediately came forward with a big smile and asked enthusiastically, "Qiao Qiao, what brings you here?" "Nothing much. Just came to see how the practice is going," Gu Qianyan replied with a smile. She wasn't wearing much makeup today, and her clothes were very casual. She looked just like a student, exuding a youthful and carefree aura. "I also came to check on the progress." Yin Xingqing's eyes revealed a hint of a hidden agenda as he secretly suggested, "Let's go together then. Class A's classroom is just ahead. I heard everyone in Class A is very talented." Class A. Gu Qianyan's heart stirred slightly. Actually, she had originally planned to start checking from the very last class, Class F. After all, inside Class A was that big baby who gave her a bit of headache. But President Yan's invitation was so enthusiastic, it was hard to refuse. Gu Qianyan hesitated for a moment, then had no choice but to follow him to Class F first. The moment Gu Qianyan appeared, she was recognized by the trainees present. "Good morning, everyone. Have you had breakfast?" Gu Qianyan greeted everyone with a smile. "We have." Some trainees responded enthusiastically. "Not yet. I'm on a diet. The group uniform makes me look too fat," another trainee joked. For a moment, several people in the classroom started chattering, and the atmosphere became very lively. Only Gong Yi sat there without a word, as if the surrounding liveliness had nothing to do with him. Gu Qianyan was trying very hard to restrain herself from looking in Gong Yi's direction. But who would have known that her peripheral vision would accidentally catch a flash of red? Her heart skipped a beat, and she subconsciously snapped her head over to look. She saw the handsome flower boy sweating profusely, with a dark red hair tie on his wrist that was particularly eye-catching, as if it were silently telling a story. Perhaps sensing Gu Qianyan's gaze, Gong Yi finally turned his head slowly to look over. Seeing this, Gu Qianyan suppressed the urge in her heart to grab a knife and chop off his hand, forcing a gentle smile onto her face. Just then, someone said, "Gong Yi, I've been meaning to ask you. That thing you're wearing is pretty strange. It looks like a little girl's hair tie." At this moment, a sunny and handsome trainee perfectly demonstrated what it means to bring up a sore subject in front of Gu Qianyan, asking curiously, "Yeah, what is that exactly?" Gong Yi lifted his arm, showing a rare, gentle smile. He asked back, "Is it a hair tie?" After a pause, he continued, "It's not mine." Gong Yi tilted his head up slightly, his ridiculously handsome face filled with an innocent and harmless expression, and said slowly, "It's my older sister's." Hearing herself being called older sister, Gu Qianyan's legs involuntarily went a little weak, and she had a bad feeling in her heart. "Why would your sister give you that?" Everyone looked puzzled and curious. "To keep me safe, I guess." "My sister didn't say, so I'm not too sure either," Gong Yi said, while casting a seemingly casual glance at Gu Qianyan. Gu Qianyan's heart skipped another beat. She thought to herself, this kid's words have a hidden meaning. Keep me safe. Is he threatening her? Forcing her to ensure he advances all the way? If that was his goal, then Gu Qianyan would be disappointed in him. She originally thought he was quite good-looking, but she didn't expect him to be brainless. After some pleasantries, Gu Qianyan and Yin Chengcheng left Class A to continue their tour of the other classes. After Gu Qianyan finished touring every class, it was just in time for the lunch break. Yin Chengcheng enthusiastically invited Gu Qianyan to eat together. Gu Qianyan smiled and politely declined. She had originally planned to go back to the dance studio to practice. But as she was passing by Class A, she saw Gong Yi alone in the practice room. Gu Qianyan glanced over, lowered her eyelids slightly in thought, and then said to Zhou beside her, "Zhou, go do something for me." A short while later, Gu Qianyan slowly pushed open the door to the practice room. Gong Yi heard the noise and turned around. Gu Qianyan looked at him and said calmly, "Let's talk." Gong Yi lowered his eyelids and let out a soft laugh, his tone carrying an ambiguous feeling. He said, "Hello, older sister." Gu Qianyan watched him quietly. The young man's slender neck tilted up slightly as he drank water, already exuded an indescribable sexy charm. Especially when he swallowed, his Adam's apple bobbed up and down, as if possessing a unique allure. For some reason, some amorous clips inexplicably flashed through Gu Qianyan's mind. Her face instantly grew a little hot. Gong Yi seemed to notice Gu Qianyan's odd behavior and looked at her with confusion. Gu Qianyan snapped back to her senses, quickly suppressed her wildly beating heart, and tried to regain her composure. Then she spoke. "That question you asked me last time. I'm a little worried. Is someone trying to use the casting couch on you?" Gong, he lowered his eyelids and let out a soft laugh. The smile seemed to hide many deep meanings, making Gu Qianyan feel inexplicably guilty. Following that, Gong Yi slowly walked towards Gu Qianyan, each step carrying a unique aura, stopping only when he was right in front of her. Teacher, you're asking even though you already know. Gong Yi lowered his head slightly, leaning close to Gu Qianyan's ear. His voice was soft, yet it seemed to carry an invisible force as it entered her ears. A vein on Gu Qianyan's temple twitched uncontrollably. She thought to herself, this guy's aggressiveness is too strong. Gong Yi just looked at her like that, then placed his hands on the long bar on either side of Gu Qianyan's body, directly trapping Gu Qianyan within his personal space. Gu Qianyan's back was suddenly against the bar. She was completely stunned, her face full of shock. She looked up at Gong Yi in astonishment, her heart filled with both shock and anger. She thought, this is a practice room. There's a whole row of cameras right across from us. How dare he do this? Gong Yi, there are cameras all over the place opposite you, Gu Qianyan said word by word, trying to make Gong Yi come to his senses, realizing the inappropriateness of the moment. However, Gong Yi just laughed, a hint of slyness in his smile. He said slowly, before you came in, teacher, didn't you have someone turn them off? Gu Qianyan was a loss for words, cursing inwardly, little fox cub. In the next second, Gu Qianyan suddenly remembered something else. She had indeed told someone to turn off all the recording in this room. But the problem was, Gong Yi himself still had a wireless microphone on him for sound recording that had to be turned off manually. And before she had a chance to have him turn it off, this fox had started going crazy. The microphone on you? Gu Qianyan asked anxiously. Before Gong Yi could answer, Gu Qianyan, in her haste, quickly reached out, wrapped an arm around Gong Yi's waist in an embrace, and took the microphone off from his back. Just as she was about to turn it off, Gu Qianyan discovered that the device was already off. Gu Qianyan was once again speechless, feeling both angry and helpless. She looked up at Gong Yi, only to see the smile on his face grow wider. That look clearly showed that he had planned all of this from the beginning. Gu Qianyan gritted her teeth, inwardly annoyed. She had actually been schemed against by him. No wonder she thought, how could he be so brazen? She angrily put the microphone back on, then grabbed Gong Yi's collar with both hands and yanked him forcefully toward her. Her eyes held a warning as she said, Gong Yi, I don't know what you're trying to do. You're not saying, and I don't want to ask anymore. But let me be clear up front. With a face like yours, it's not hard at all to make it in the entertainment industry. You helped me, and I'm willing to help you. But if you don't know what's good for you and insist on going against me, there will definitely be no good end for you. Did I help you? When? Where? How did I help? Gong Yi asked slowly, word by word, with his eyes lowered, in a manner that suggested he truly knew nothing. Gu Qianyan was once again choked speechless. Just then, there was a knock on the door, and Zhou Zhou's voice was heard at the same time. Xiao Xiao, it's time to go. This was the secret signal she had arranged with Zhou Zhou beforehand. As soon as someone came, Zhou Zhou would knock and call for her to leave like this. Gu Qianyan let out a long breath of relief, released her grip on Gong Yi's collar, and then subconsciously patted his chest with both hands, smoothing out the wrinkled fabric. Only then did she realize that while Gong Yi didn't look bulky, his muscles were very firm. In a few days, the sponsor will take the Class A trainees to shoot a commercial. Let's meet privately, Gu Qianyan said after some thought. Gong Yi's response was surprisingly obedient in tone. That well-behaved feeling was a stark contrast to his aggressive demeanor just now. The anger in Gu Qianyan's heart was instantly doused quite a bit. She even began to suspect if she was being seduced into a state of confusion by him. She actually felt that he didn't seem to have any hostility towards her, but rather seemed to be playing a prank. Gu Qianyan gritted her teeth, trying her best to look fierce. Her gaze inadvertently fell on his wrist, where he wore the red hair tie. In her eyes, the hair tie looked increasingly jarring. It's ugly. Don't wear it, Gu Qianyan said irritably. Understood, teacher, Gong Yi replied very firmly. Whether it was Gong Yi calling her older sister in the morning or teacher now, Gu Qianyan felt uncomfortable all over. The feeling was incredibly awkward. Zhou Zhou had long been waiting anxiously outside the door. Gu Qianyan opened the door and walked out. Zhou Zhou immediately looked curiously into the practice room. In the golden sunlight, the young man was as beautiful as if he had stepped out of a painting. He was slowly and methodically untying the keep me safe hair tie given by his older sister. Watching this scene, Zhou Zhou couldn't help but sigh in his heart. A money tree. This is a living money tree. Gu Qianyan didn't say anything, her mind full of calculations, thinking about how to handle this troublesome yet extremely attractive treasure. As for Gong Yi, after untying the hair tie, he folded it meticulously and carefully put it in his pocket. He seemed to be in a pretty good mood. Then he picked up his things, ready to go back to the dorm to take a shower before continuing to practice in the afternoon. But just as he walked out of the classroom, he was stopped by someone. It was Yue. Yue's mouth twitched slightly, feeling extremely unhappy. Just now, he had personally seen Gu Qianyan hurriedly coming out of the practice room. A lone man and a lone woman, hiding in the practice room with the door and windows closed. Who knows what they were doing in there? No wonder Gu Qianyan was so indifferent to him before. It turns out she already had someone in her heart. What's your relationship? Yue couldn't help but ask, his tone carrying a hint of interrogation. What relationship I have with her has what to do with you. Gong, he showed no courtesy, his tone as cold as ice. His eyes showed impatience, as if Yue had asked an extremely stupid question. Quite arrogant, Yue laughed speechlessly, feeling very displeased. Kid, don't think you're so great, just because you're a little better looking. This place is all about strength. Strength? Which class are you in then? Gong Yi's words were sharp and to the point, hitting Yue's sore spot directly. After all, this time Yue was actually assigned to Class C. In this training camp, Class C was considered the lower circle. For the always proud and arrogant Yue, this was already a very shameful thing. You know how you got into Class C? Weren't you just kept by Gu Qianyan? What are you so proud of? Yue was so angry he spoke without thinking, blurting out such words. Hearing this, Gong, he just took a step forward, stopped beside him, and then lightly dropped a sentence. You might want her to, but does she want you? These words infuriated Yue. He felt as if he had been struck by lightning, his face turning red and white, unable to recover for a long time. Before he could react, Gong, he had already left without looking back. That dashing figure made Yue even more furious, grinding his teeth. Gu Qianyan doesn't want me? Bullshit, Yue thought viciously to himself. It's just that pretty boy Gong, he got one step ahead of me. Just wait, I'll snatch both the debut opportunity and Gu Qianyan. When the time comes, I'll definitely take the humiliation this pretty boy gave me and stomp it back hard, letting him taste what it's like to be looked down upon. And on the other side, Yin Chengcheng was secretly waiting for Gong Yi to come out of the practice room. Seeing Gong Yi come out, he hurried to follow. Why are you here again? Gong Yi asked a little helplessly. I'm the chief producer. Of course, I have to come over often to check on the recording situation. After saying that, Yin Chengcheng lowered his voice and said with a mysterious air, it's not like you don't know. Whether or not I can avoid being sent off to be a tribal consort depends on this. Then why are you blocking me? People are already suspecting I'm a connected household kept by Gu Qianyan. What does President Yin want to join that camp to? Gong, he said teasingly. Yin Chengcheng was stunned for a moment, his eyes wide as he asked, did that kid just now say that? Gong Yi acknowledged it. He must not want to make it in this industry anymore. Don't worry about it. I'll have someone get rid of him right away, Yin Chengcheng said angrily, thinking he couldn't let Gong Yi suffer such an injustice. Gong Yi looked at him. He said with a rather serious expression, this is a competition. The only reason anyone should leave is by being eliminated. I disdain using any underhanded methods on this kind of person. Yin Chengcheng was stunned for a moment, but quickly understood Gong Yi's meaning. He couldn't help but admire him a little more. Then, Yin Chengcheng remembered something and asked, all right, what did Juicy Peach want with you? Gong Yi raised an eyebrow slightly and said with a half smile, who knows? She probably really wants to hit on me. Hearing this, Yin Chengcheng stumbled and almost fell over. He thought to himself, this Gong, he really dares to say anything. Meanwhile, after Gu Qianyan returned to the nanny van, under the shocked gazes of Zhou Zhou and Xiao Tian, she chugged a large glass of water in one go. The way she drank looked as if she had been thirsty for a long time. You weren't talking to him for that long. How could you be so thirsty? Zhou Zhou asked, stunned. Gu Qianyan put the glass down forcefully. She had finally come back to her senses. Recalling all of Gong Yi's actions just now, that one look, that one smile, she suddenly understood. Gong, he had only one goal. He was seducing her. Gu Qianyan cursed inwardly. I really didn't expect this. I didn't expect it. The more she thought about it, the angrier she got. Gu Qianyan picked up a bottle of mineral water in the car and gulped down more than half of it. But after drinking, the anger in her heart not only didn't dissipate, but grew even stronger. If he confused her like this a few more times, she really wouldn't be able to hold out. Gu Qiaoyan thought to herself. Not signing him is the right decision, Gu Qiaoyan said angrily. Then she instructed Zhou Zhou, do me a favor. Pick up Gong in 3 days. On the other side, Yin Chengsheng was also asking Gong, so what's your next step? But Gong looked completely at ease, the corners of his mouth turning up in a mischievous smile as he said, of course, it's to let my older sister hit on me. In the blink of an eye, the theme song assessment day arrived. The atmosphere in the entire training camp became exceptionally tense. As the various assessments were completed, it was time to announce the ranking results. In the last spot for promotion to class, it was given to Gong without any suspense. After all the rankings were completed, the cruelty of the competition system became even more apparent. After this assessment, some trainees were promoted and naturally, some were demoted. The promoted trainees were naturally overjoyed, their faces beaming with happy smiles. But the demoted ones were a completely different story. Several of the demoted boys were already crying their eyes out, their unstoppable tears filled with disappointment and sadness. After all, everyone wants to move to a better class, to a higher position. This is just one mentor assessment. Ultimately, whether you can successfully debut as a group is still in the hands of the national producers. Those of you who were demoted, don't be too sad. The upcoming public performance is where you can truly show your skills. And those who were promoted, don't get complacent. You absolutely cannot let your guard down. You must know that the beasts are right behind you. If you don't run forward with all your might, it's a dead end, Gu Qiaoyan said with a serious expression. She hoped these trainees would all understand that in this fiercely competitive entertainment industry, every step must be taken with full effort. The trainees of Class A will be the first to have a mid-show commercial. This mid-show commercial is an ad inserted in the middle of the show's broadcast. It's considered a special reward from the training camp for these outstanding trainees. Now, would everyone from Class A please gather in the first floor lobby and prepare to head to the commercial shooting location to shoot your first mid-show commercial. After saying this, Gu Qiaoyan subconsciously glanced at Gong Yi. Gong Yi seemed to notice her gaze and seemed to raise an eyebrow at her slightly. Although it was just a fleeting action, Gu Qiaoyan still keenly sensed his little, fatally proud emotion. However, Su Xian misinterpreted this signal, thinking Gong Yi was raising his eyebrow at her. Instantly, Su Xian's heart bloomed like a flower. Overjoyed, she was utterly ecstatic. She was sent into a flutter by Gong Yi's small, eyebrow-raising gesture, and her mind began to run wild with fantasies. She even started calculating what resources in her hands she would introduce to him, as long as Gong Yi obediently listened to her. Her expression was as if Gong Yi was already in her pocket. Sister Qiao, after what happened last time, I went back and thought it through. There's no need for us to be at odds. As they were leaving the waiting room, Su Xian suddenly quickened her pace, sidled up to Gu Qiaoyan, and walked shoulder to shoulder with her. As she walked, she added, "Oh, right? Out of courtesy, I'm letting you know, Gong Yi and I have already sparked something. Older sister, you'd better not have any ideas about him, lest he's too scared of offending you to refuse and lives in constant fear." Sparks? Gu Qiaoyan wasn't angry, but just found it interesting. She was curious about what these sparks Su Xian was talking about really were. Could it be that Gong Yi is a Sea King? While flirting with her, is he also pursuing a parallel track with Su Xian? You saw just now, right? He was making eyes at me. Su Xian had a helpless look on her face, and though her words said one thing, her expression held a hint of smugness. The young boys these days are really skilled. I wonder if the camera caught it. Later, I'll have to talk to the editor. If that shot exists, it has to be cut. In a bit, I'll also have to have a good talk with him. He has to be more restrained in front of the camera in the future. Even if he likes me that much, he has to control himself. Hearing her words, Gu Qiaoyan was speechless for a moment and just silently rolled her eyes in her mind. Gu Qiaoyan then got into her nanny van and headed for the shooting location. After getting in the car, Zhou had an indignant look on his face and said grimly, "I just saw Su Xian get on the trainee's bus. The way she looks at my cub, it's full of greed, evil thoughts, desire, and possessiveness. It's just too vile." Zhou said this while grinding his teeth. He looked so anxious, as if he was afraid Gong Yi would be devoured by Su Xian. Xiao, why didn't you get on that bus? What, you expect your boss to go protect your cub? Gu Qiaoyan said teasingly. Gu Qiaoyan said slowly, "You're getting anxious here, but maybe he's enjoying it." During the initial selection that day, After confirming that Gong Yi was the future top star, Gu Qianyan had overlooked an important matter. She had to remember that in her past life, she and Gong Yi had no interaction whatsoever. Yet even so, he still came to participate in this show and ultimately debuted in the center position. This meant that with or without her, Gong Yi would have come to compete in the show National Idol. Perhaps he really did come simply to become famous, and it was just a coincidence that he ran into her in this life. Coupled with his blatant flirting last time, Gu Qianyan was increasingly unable to figure out this Vajra baby. She couldn't help but wonder if he would really return to his old profession for the sake of his future. Gu Qianyan's mind was a mess, filled with all sorts of speculations about Gong Yi. Gu Qianyan's nanny van arrived at the shooting location at roughly the same time as the trainee's bus. After getting out of the car, she subconsciously glanced towards the bus. She saw everyone getting off the bus one after another, but strangely, she didn't see Gong Yi. Gu Qianyan smiled and walked over, asking, "Why is one person missing?" "Gong Yi? He said he's taking a taxi here himself. He's probably not used to how old and shabby the bus is," Yue quickly answered. The moment he spoke, anyone could tell from his tone and expression that he was making trouble. A classic old green team move. The staff member in charge of planning this commercial shoot heard this, and his brow immediately furrowed tightly. He was usually in charge of most of the commercial shoots for the company's brands and had seen many big stars act like divas and arrive late. But he had never seen a rookie who hadn't even debuted dare to be so brazenly late. "If you don't want to do it, then don't. You're wasting everyone's time," the planner said angrily. "His name is Gong Yi, right? Just have someone else shoot his part. We arranged such a good segment for him, and he doesn't even cherish it. Then let him shoot the bad parts." Yue looked concerned for Gong Yi on the surface, but the corners of his mouth and the look in his eyes were full of unconcealable schadenfreude. He was secretly gloating. At this point, Gu Qianyan told Zhou Zhou to handle the matter. Just then, a man walked over calling out, "Qiao Qiao." This person was the director from the brand they were shooting for today, Director Xiao. As he spoke, his hand, whether intentionally or not, that landed on Gu Qianyan's waist, gently pushing her forward. With a face full of smiles, he said, "Qiao Qiao, my daughter is a huge fan of yours. I'm truly fortunate to be able to work with you this time. It's stuffy out here. Let's all go inside first." Gu Qianyan immediately noticed Director Zhao's little action and felt very repulsed. She discreetly changed her position, cleverly avoiding his hand. Just then, a small commotion suddenly arose in the shooting hall. Gu Qianyan raised an eyebrow slightly. She didn't even need to turn around to know that it must be Gong Yi who had arrived. Director Xiao, who was all smiles at first, walked straight towards Gong Yi the moment he saw him. Yue's expression showed a moment of panic, but he quickly returned to normal. Then he said to Gong Yi, "You're late. Hurry up and apologize to the planner's sister." Gong Yi glanced sideways at Yue, his gaze so cold it was as if it could instantly freeze Yue solid, making one shiver just by looking. And at this moment, the planner's sister, who had been in a fuming, rampaging state, that the moment she saw Gong Yi, her face immediately became gentle, her eyes gazing at Gong Yi as if they were sparkling. She quickly said, "No rush, no rush. Just take your time with makeup. I'll just move your part to later." After the planner's sister finished speaking, she left. Yue, seeing this, also turned to leave. But before he could take a step, Gong Yi's cold voice rang out from behind him. "Was it you who told the driver I was taking a taxi myself?" Gong Yi's tone was laced with a chill. "May I ask, when did I ever say I was taking a taxi here, Mr. Yue?" Gong Yi had a very powerful aura. He stood there, exuding an intimidating presence without being angry. Especially his last few words, "Mr. Yue." It was as if each word was a block of ice, instantly causing the temperature on the entire set to drop. The atmosphere became exceptionally cold. "I saw you going so late. It was time to leave, and you still hadn't come out. I thought you weren't going to make it. That's why I said you might be a little late and would come over after finishing your interview." The driver must have misunderstood and drove off. "Oh, Miss Sori, Gong Yi, I really didn't do it on purpose. I apologize to you. Luckily, the planning sister isn't really mad at you. I hope you can forgive me, okay?" Yu Wei said, trying to defend himself with a flustered yet feigned sincere look. Gong, we're all training together. Yu Wei just made an honest mistake this time. Besides, it was indeed time to leave, and you hadn't shown up. The one who spoke was that sunny and handsome contestant from before. He had the look of a peacemaker and was usually keen on playing that role. But Gong, he had never been one for reconciliation. He had no intention of listening to Yu Wei's feeble excuses. He cut him off directly and said coldly, "Why was I late going in?" "You don't know?" Gong Yi's sharp gaze fixed on Yu Wei. "Isn't it because you stayed in there for an extra 20 minutes? Yu Wei's face instantly stiffened. He never imagined that Gong Yi would relentlessly pursue the matter so mercilessly in public. His face flushed red, and he stammered, "That's because the director-editor asked a lot of questions." "Yu Wei, this is a competition. Play fewer dirty tricks. Be careful you don't get burned playing with fire." Gong Yi had no desire to hear Yu Wei's excuses any longer. After throwing out this warning, he ignored the shocked gazes of everyone present and walked straight towards the dressing room. "I didn't." Yu Wei stood rooted to the spot, his eyes red, still trying to defend himself. But his voice sounded so feeble. Although there was this little incident with Yu Wei, the subsequent shoot still went very smoothly. Gu Qianyan had been in countless commercials since she was a child, more than she could count on both hands. So, she was very experienced. During the shoot, she passed almost every scene in a single take. Her professional performance earned the admiration of everyone present. Director Xiao, as the person in charge from the brand side, was watching Gu Qianyan's shoot from the sidelines. His eyes were glued to her, almost popping out of their sockets, and he kept swallowing his saliva. Gu Qianyan's final scene was completed smoothly. "Thank you for your hard work, everyone." Gu Qianyan gently pressed her hand to her chest, her face full of politeness, and gave a slight bow to the staff on set. Her humble and elegant posture made people feel that she was even more approachable and cultured. As for Director Xiao, he stared at Gu Qianyan without blinking, his eyes nearly popping out, and he kept swallowing his saliva. He looked as if Gu Qianyan were some rare treasure. His eyes revealed undisguised greed and desire. As soon as the commercial shoot ended, Director Xiao couldn't wait to go forward to get a closer look at this captivating beauty who mesmerized him. But before he could walk over, it was that annoying Gong Yi again. After the shoot ended, he popped up like a phantom, quickly grabbed a trench coat, and wrapped it around Gu Qianyan. Just like that, the originally pleasing and perfect view was instantly blocked. Actually, this was all instructed by Zhou Zhou. The moment Gong Yi wrapped the trench coat around Gu Qianyan, their eyes met. Gu Qianyan immediately understood. This kid was deliberately flirting with her again. She felt both annoyed and amused. So, she deliberately moved even closer, thinking of scaring him a little. The two of them were about to leave, but Director Xiao came over. His face was all smiles, his eyes holding a fawning look. He said, "Qiao Qiao, you truly live up to your title as our youngest best actress. Your expressiveness in front of the camera is just fantastic. Our company has hired so many spokespeople, but none have been as professional and as beautiful as you." As he said beautiful, Director Zhao's gaze was so blatant, landing directly on Gu Qianyan's chest. Anyone could see the thoughts in his eyes. It was utterly sleazy. Although Gu Qianyan was now wearing a trench coat wrapped up tightly, for Director Xiao, who was already obsessively fantasizing about her, just being able to see her up close, even an inch of her skin, was a fatal temptation. "Xiao Xiao, let's take a photo together." Director Xiao looked up at Gu Qianyan, the desire in his eyes almost overflowing. If it weren't for the crowd around them, he probably would have lost control and pounced on her already. Just then, Gong Yi stepped directly in front of them, blocking Director Xiao, then pulled Gu Qianyan away and left quickly. This made Director Xiao hate him. He secretly gritted his teeth, thinking he must find a chance to get revenge on Gong Yi. On the set, Gong Yi was seriously engaged in his shoot. His focused and dedicated expression made it seem as if nothing else around him mattered. The chief planner watched Gong Yi shoot from the side, unable to stop sighing with admiration. "If I had known he was such a top-tier specimen, I would have insisted on a plan that showed some skin when we were planning this a few days ago. Look, you can almost see his abs through that white shirt, can't you? Amazing, absolutely amazing." Hearing this, Gu Qianyan froze for a moment. Then, her mind involuntarily recalled Gong Yi's abs. He really did have abs, and they were very nice. The feel of them was excellent too. As this thought emerged, the corresponding image naturally appeared in her mind. Gu Qianyan was instantly lost in that memory. After a while, the alarm bells of reason rang in her mind. She quickly came back to her senses, sat up straight with a serious expression, and silently cursed herself. Gu Qianyan, oh Gu Qianyan, you pervert. Thinking this, she subconsciously furrowed her brows. The next person shooting on set was Yue. Gu Qianyan didn't know that Yue had noticed her the moment she arrived, so he immediately started performing with more effort, intent on showing off in front of Gu Qianyan so that she would see him in a new light. However, everyone on set was praising Gong Yi. Every word of praise that reached Yue's ears made him more and more flustered. As a result, he got nervous and made a mistake on the spot. The director immediately yelled cut. His expression was not good. Yue's face instantly flushed red with embarrassment and frustration. Just then, Gu Qianyan stood up and left directly. Seeing this, Yue thought his terrible performance had disappointed Gu Qianyan. He suddenly felt like the sky was falling, and his spirits hit rock bottom. During the subsequent shoot, his form remained off. He just couldn't get back into the groove. It took a long time before he barely managed to finish filming his part. In reality, Gu Qianyan hadn't paid much attention to him at all. She just didn't want to listen to the women next to her fantasizing and fawning over Gong Yi, which is why she chose to leave. Just as she rounded a corner, she faintly heard a familiar, sleazy, and excited voice from the stairwell. Gu Qianyan is fucking amazing. She looks skinny, but once her clothes are off, she's got everything you could want. Every part of her is top tier. If it weren't for that meddlesome trainee today, I would have already pulled her into my arms and enjoyed myself. Hearing this, Gu Qianyan's steps came to a halt. She felt a wave of nausea and cursed inwardly. This director Xiao is truly a shameless scoundrel. Don't believe me? I'm going to get her tonight. Just wait. I'll find some good equipment and set it up in the hotel. I'll give you a live broadcast tonight. That director Xiao was getting more and more excited on the phone. His lewd thoughts were simply nauseating. Gu Qianyan felt like she was about to throw up listening to him. Just as she was thinking of a way to deal with this guy, there was a sudden click. The lights in the stairwell suddenly went out. Director Xiao thought it was just the motion sensor lights turning off normally. He subconsciously stomped his foot, trying to get the lights to turn back on. But there was no reaction in the stairwell. It remained pitch black. What's going on? Director Xiao muttered, feeling a little puzzled and vaguely uneasy. The person on the other end of the phone joked, "What, did Gu Qianyan just throw herself into your arms?" Director Xiao was about to fire back a witty retort. He subconsciously turned to look, but before he could see clearly who it was, that he was viciously struck in a critical area with a stick by the newcomer. Director Xiao screamed in pain, quickly clamping his legs together and covering the critical spot with his hands. He struggled to lift his eyes, wanting to see who had attacked him. But before he could say anything, the person raised their hand, and the stick in it was pressed against Director Zhao's head. The cold, hard sensation made Director Zhao's face pale with fright. He trembled all over, lost his balance, and tumbled backward down the stairs. Ouch! Director Xiao rolled all the way down the stairs, finally hitting the wall. A pained sound escaped him, seeming particularly miserable in the dark and quiet stairwell. In the darkness, Gu Qianyan, holding a baseball bat, looked down from above at Director Xiao struggling in pain on the ground. Her eyes were filled with indifference and disdain. Then, she turned and left. Director Xiao watched the dark figure gradually disappear, feeling as though he had just survived a disaster. But his body still couldn't stop trembling. After all, that recent encounter was truly terrifying. The lights in the stairwell seemed to be broken. It was pitch black. Director Xiao was in agony, feeling like he was half dead. His uninjured hand fumbled on the ground, thinking he had to find his phone and call the police immediately. But just as he was about to touch his phone, he heard footsteps coming up the stairs. The thump, thump, thump sound was exceptionally clear in the silent stairwell. In the pitch darkness, Director Xiao vaguely saw a tall figure slowly walk up to him. "I'm Director Xiao from the marketing department. Help me call the police. Someone attacked me." Director Xiao called out weakly, full of hope that this person would help him. But the person stood beside him for a moment, then kicked the phone that was within Director Zhao's reach, sending it flying. Then, Without hesitation, they stepped on Director Zhao's hand. Director Zhao let out another miserable scream. The pain from one's fingers is connected to the heart. That stomp was so excruciatingly painful, it felt like his heart was being ripped apart, and he felt like he was about to pass out. The tall figure, as if completely oblivious to the large man lying on the ground, casually stuck their hands in their pockets and walked unhurriedly upstairs. Then they pulled open the door and left without a backward glance. Their posture exuded an indescribable coldness. Gu Qianyan had only taken a few steps when she faintly heard a miserable scream from the stairwell. The sound was particularly shrill in the silent corridor. She furrowed her brows slightly, wondering if something else had happened to Director Zhao. Just as she was about to turn back and check, Gong Yi suddenly appeared. You! Gu Qianyan looked at Gong Yi with a stunned expression, completely surprised. How did she run into him here? But Gong Yi said nothing, strode forward, grabbed Gu Qianyan's hand, and pulled her along. Gu Qianyan was bewildered, thinking, I wasn't planning on running. What does he mean by this? Before Gu Qianyan could ask, Gong Yi pulled her into a storage room. Teacher, you know how to hit people too? Gong Yi pinned Gu Qianyan against the wall, reached out, and took the baseball bat she was still holding. He said this in that same inscrutable, yet exceptionally bewitching tone. Gu Qianyan was truly speechless at his words. She complained inwardly, why do I always run into him at such strange times? It's too much of a coincidence. She simply leaned comfortably against the wall, tilting her head up slightly to look at Gong Yi, not looking scared at all. The light in the room was very dim, creating a unique atmosphere. Gu Qianyan raised her hand, her cool fingertips gently pinching Gong Yi's chin. She thought, flirting is it? Who doesn't know how? Little boy, your big sister is in a very bad mood right now. Do you really have to provoke me at a time like this? Gu Qianyan said, her tone carrying a hint of warning, yet also seeming to hide some other emotion. Sister, you're heartless. I was clearly saving you. How did that become provoking you? Gong Yi let Gu Qianyan pinch his chin without any intention of resisting. His lazy tone carried a hint of flirtation, as if he deliberately wanted to make Gu Qianyan's heart flutter. Gu Qianyan felt her heart tremble. She complained inwardly, who told him to call me sister? And he says I'm heartless. Buddy, can you not be so captivating when you're acting cute? Who asked you to save me? Gu Qianyan quickly pulled her hand back. She knew clearly that if she didn't let go, her fingertips would probably become scorching hot. What did you do just now? Why was he screaming so miserably? Gong Yi raised an eyebrow slightly, looking completely unconcerned. Was there someone in the stairwell? I think I might have stepped on something just now. I didn't really notice. Sister, don't call me sister. The moment Gu Qianyan heard him say sister, her heart leaped into her throat. She subconsciously reached out and covered Gong Yi's mouth. She thought to herself, many people called her sister, including quite a few boys. But no one had ever called her sister in a way that made her heart race and her legs go weak. Gong Yi looked at her calmly, his eyes seeming to hold 1,000 words. The moment their eyes met, in a flash, Gu Qianyan suddenly remembered a familiar scene. That night at the hotel entrance, she had been afraid he would speak and had covered his mouth just like this. Gu Qianyan snatched her hand back as if she'd been electrocuted, feeling flustered and a little awkward. But in the next second, reality mercilessly shattered her wishful thinking. Gong Yi braced one hand on the wall beside Gu Qianyan, leaned down close to her face, a faint smile playing on his lips. He said slowly, you cover my mouth. Are you going to force a kiss next? It was the same deep, pleasant voice, only this time it was laced with a rich amusement that seemed to bore straight into one's heart, making the smile even more profound. Hearing it made one's heart ripple uncontrollably. Gu Qianyan was instantly petrified. She just stood there, stunned, not knowing how to react for a moment. You're not pretending anymore? After a moment, Gu Qianyan forced herself to calm down and asked, biting the bullet, trying to appear less flustered. I got tired of playing that way. Gong Yi nodded seriously. He looked as if all his previous actions had really just been to tease Gu Qianyan. Teacher, last time in the practice room, didn't you say you wanted to talk to me after the commercial shoot? Let's talk. Hearing this, Gu Qianyan felt like she was about to choke on her own blood, almost dying of anger. She thought, what on earth is this? I was drugged that night. Gu Qiaoyan didn't want to beat around the bush anymore. She said directly, that night was just a transaction I paid for. Nothing more. Gu Qiaoyan looked at Gong Yi sincerely, hoping he would just drop the matter of that night. Gong Yi, I'll say it again. You helped me. I don't want to move against you. Can we just consider the matter of that night over once we walk out this door? Hearing this, Gong Yi couldn't help but laugh. His smile seemed to hold a hint of helplessness, yet also seemed to hide something else. What are you laughing at? Gu Qiaoyan frowned, her expression suddenly turning serious. She felt a flicker of anger, feeling that Gong Yi wasn't taking her words seriously. The matter of that night isn't over for me. Gong Yi reached out, gently hooking a strand of Gu Qiaoyan's hair and twirling it around his fingertip. His eyes held a trace of grievance and a different kind of emotion. He said slowly, "Teacher, you tell me, how am I supposed to get over having my precious first time taken away, just like that?" Gu Qiaoyan felt as if she had been struck by lightning. Her eyes widened in utter disbelief. She blurted out, "Your first time?" Gongyi no depicted. I hadn't even started in the business yet when I met you. It was true. After all, at the beginning of that night, Gong Yi's performance had indeed been very clumsy. It was only later that he slowly got into it, and things got better. Then what do you want? Gu Qiaoyan asked helplessly. She really couldn't handle Gong Yi's inscrutable attitude anymore. She just hoped he could give her a clear answer so she would know where she stood. I haven't decided yet, Gong Yi said unhurriedly. His tone was casual, as if this wasn't an urgent matter for him. I'll tell you when I've figured it out. Okay, teacher? Gu Qiaoyan felt a headache coming on. She was so frustrated. What on earth was this Gong Yi planning? It was truly baffling. Just then, someone passed by the fire escape door and heard faint cries for help from inside. They quickly brought people to open the door and check, only to discover the horribly battered director, Xiao, lying on the ground. His wretched and miserable state gave everyone a fright. Gu Qiaoyan also heard the gasps of surprise from outside. She thought, I can't get involved in this. She quickly said to Gong Yi, pretend you know nothing about what just happened. Don't get involved. Understand? Understood. Gong Yi nodded obediently. His compliant look made Gu Qiaoyan relax a little. Gu Qiaoyan took a deep breath, trying to compose herself after the series of shocks and calm down as quickly as possible. I'm going out now. You hide here. Come out after everyone outside has left, okay? Gu Qiaoyan said softly, thinking this would avoid unnecessary trouble. Gong Yi had been very obedient in his answers so far, so Gu Qiaoyan thought she would get another compliant okay this time. But unexpectedly, Gong Yi stopped her in the next second. She heard Gong Yi say, Teacher, I still have something to tell you. I was bullied. Gong Yi looked at Gu Qiaoyan with a wronged expression. Gu Qiaoyan looked at him, a little puzzled, not understanding what he meant. That person's name is Yue. He's convinced that you're my sugar mommy, Gong Yi continued. That's why he's bullying me out of jealousy. Understood. I'll have someone handle it. He won't bully you again. Gu Qiaoyan thought, if Yue is targeting Gong Yi because of me, then Gong Yi has been dragged into this because of me. I do have a responsibility in this matter. I should help resolve it. No need. I'll solve it myself. Gong Yi refused directly. Then his tone shifted and he said slowly, what I want to say is, Teacher, if you really plan on being a sugar mommy to someone, you can consider me first. Gu Qiaoyan was stunned for a good while before she came to her senses. She asked, are you short on money recently? She paused, then remembered something and asked, what about the diamond earring? Not for sale. Gong Yi answered without hesitation. His tone was firm, as if that diamond earring held a special meaning for him, and he would never sell it no matter what. Gu Qiaoyan's heart was struck hard by Gong Yi's unhesitating not for sale. She thought, isn't this absurd? He won't sell the diamond earring, but he'll sell himself. Just how reluctant is he to part with that earring? Gong Yi, I won't interfere in your personal life. If you're short on money, I can lend you some, Gu Qiaoyan said with a serious expression. She was genuinely worried that Gong Yi would do something inappropriate because of money. You're going to be a celebrity. You can't do that kind of business from before anymore. If someone finds out and uses it against you, you'll be finished. I know. Gong Yi looked at her, his eyes holding a unique kind of plea. That's why I came to you, teacher, to continue our business. Look at him, His words even sounded quite reasonable. It left Gu Qianyan not knowing whether to laugh or cry. How much money do you need? Give me your account number. I'll lend it to you. As Gu Qianyan spoke, she took out her phone and opened the notepad, ready to jot down the account information. Before she could finish her sentence, Gong Yi snatched her phone away. The action was so fast that Gu Qianyan didn't even have time to react. Gu Qianyan looked at him, stunned, full of surprise, wondering what he was up to now. If you're not willing to buy from me, are you planning to buy from Yue Wei or some other boy here? Gong Yi looked at Gu Qianyan, his eyes seeming to hold a hint of grievance. But his words made Gu Qianyan feel both annoyed and amused. I don't want anyone, Gu Qianyan said helplessly. I don't know what rumors you've heard, but please look at me now. I'll tell you myself. Gu Qianyan never had such thoughts before, doesn't have them now, and will not have them in the future. Understood? After listening, Gong Yi raised an eyebrow slightly, his thoughts unreadable. Then he took Gu Qianyan's phone and quickly typed something. After locking the screen, he took Gu Qianyan's hand and pushed the phone back into it. His actions had a certain ritualistic quality unique to young boys. You don't want me, so naturally I have no reason to take your money, Gong Yi replied, his tone tinged with a little disappointment. You don't want me. Hearing this, Gu Qianyan felt an inexplicable sense of guilt, as if she had wronged him somehow. But she also found the thought quite absurd. After speaking, Gong Yi gently ruffled Gu Qianyan's hair with his large hand. The gesture was very natural and intimate. Then, before Gu Qianyan could react, he opened the door with light steps and went out. Gu Qianyan subconsciously touched her own head. At first, she laughed in exasperation, thinking, how old is he? How dare he touch his big sister's head? But after her annoyance passed, she propped her hand on her forehead, and the corners of her mouth couldn't help but curve up slightly. She thought, this kid had to flirt with me one last time before leaving. But since he didn't give her a card number, what did he type into the phone just now? Curious, Gu Qianyan unlocked her phone and opened the notepad. Inside, she found Gong Yi's phone number. After returning to the dressing room, Gu Qianyan sat there, frowning, thinking about how to cleverly turn around the current complex and tricky situation. Suddenly, a commotion erupted outside the door. A burst of noise shattered the original silence. Su Xian, don't go too far. It was Zhou Zhou's angry voice. How am I going too far? Director Xiao is the one, saying Gu Qianyan was the one who pushed him. Can't I even bring him here to ask Gu Qianyan about it reasonably? Su Xian's voice was self-righteous, but anyone could hear the ill intentions behind her words. Hearing the commotion, Gu Qianyan looked towards the door and raised an eyebrow slightly, thinking, what kind of trick is this Su Xian trying to pull now? She's definitely up to no good. But Su Xian, without another word, forcefully pushed aside Zhou Zhou, who was blocking the way, and barged directly into Gu Qianyan's dressing room. Sister Qiao, it's like this. Director Xiao was suddenly hit with a stick in the stairwell just now and was also pushed down the stairs. Director Xiao said the person who pushed him down had a similar build to you and wore the same perfume as you. As Su Xian spoke, she carefully observed Gu Qianyan's expression. Sister Qiao, I asked around. You were the only one who walked this way at that time. There are no outsiders here. If you really did it by accident, just apologize to Director Xiao and compensate him a little, and it'll be fine. The reason she encouraged Director Xiao to harass Gu Qianyan was actually very simple. If Director Xiao succeeded in his harassment, that would be for the best, as she could then use it to control Gu Qianyan. If the harassment was unsuccessful, she would take advantage of Director Zhao's desperation while he was lingering around Gu Qianyan to secretly take a few seemingly intimate photos of them together. Then she would write a press release based on the photos, framing Gu Qianyan. That would be enough to strip a layer of skin off Gu Qianyan. As long as Gu Qianyan was truly intimidated and accepted the so-called compensation, sooner or later, she could find a way to make Gu Qianyan compensate him in bed. Her thoughts were truly vicious. Director Xiao, enduring the pain, said loudly, Gu Qianyan, I know it was you. I advise you to admit it while I'm still being reasonable. Otherwise, the consequences. Before he could finish his otherwise, his phone rang. Director Xiao hadn't planned on answering it. But one look at the caller ID on the cracked screen made his face change drastically. He ignored the pain in his hand and quickly answered, "General Manager, the shoot over here is going very smoothly." Before Director Xiao could finish, the general manager on the other end exploded like a lit pack of dynamite and started cursing. "Did you just get your hand stepped on in the stairwell? You idiot, that was the big boss of the entire corporation." The general manager was absolutely furious, his voice so loud it could be heard clearly on their end. Hearing this, Director Xiao broke down on the spot. He thought, "It's over now. I actually offended the big boss of the corporation. Isn't that courting death? If I completely infuriate Gu Qianyan because of this, then I'm really finished." At this time, Su Xian was still chattering on. "If this continues and gets blown up in the news, it won't be good for you." Director Xiao put down his phone, looking utterly dejected. He quickly said, "Actually, nobody pushed me." Hearing this, Su Xian was completely stunned. Her eyes widened in disbelief. "Didn't you just say? Didn't I say I fell hard and started hallucinating?" Director Xiao shouted, feeling anxious and scared. Just wanted to clear his name immediately. "Nobody pushed me, and nobody stepped on my hand. I slipped and fell down the stairs myself." Gu Qianyan watched this dramatic scene, completely speechless. She wondered what's suddenly wrong with him. Why did he change his story all of a sudden? "Miss Gu, I'm so sorry. I was talking nonsense just now. I hope you won't take it to heart," Director Xiao said as he backed away. "I need to go to the hospital now. I have to go to the hospital." But Su Xian grabbed him, not giving up, thinking, "We can't just let it go like this." She said anxiously, "Director Xiao, don't be in such a hurry. We haven't cleared things up with Sister Xiao Xiao yet. Get lost." Director Xiao couldn't be bothered with her at this moment. He shoved Su Xian away, feeling angry and hateful, and cursed loudly. "It's all your fault, you bitch. All your fault. If you hadn't said Gu Qianyan liked me, how could I have?" Director Xiao was truly regretting it to his core. He regretted believing Su Xian's words. After pushing Su Xian away, he moved with difficulty and quickly left Gu Qianyan's dressing room. Su Xian was left standing there, completely dumbfounded. She never would have expected that old bastard Director Xiao would turn on her before leaving. This was completely beyond her expectations. At this moment, with her plan in ruins, only two words remained in Su Xian's heart. "It's over." "Su Xian, was that fun?" Gu Qianyan's cold voice sounded from behind her, seeming to carry a chilling undertone that made Su Xian shiver. Su Xian turned around stiffly to look at Gu Qianyan, her eyes filled with panic and fear, but she was still trying to argue. "Sister Qiao, this really has nothing to do with me." It was Director Xiao who was talking nonsense. As she spoke, she even pretended to be on the verge of tears. Though trying to gain sympathy, Gu Qianyan remained expressionless, looking at her coldly. Then she picked up the water cup beside her and threw it forcefully. Su Xian was so scared she quickly covered her ears and squatted down in terror. The cup smashed against the wall, splashing water everywhere, which frightened her even more. "What gives a thing like you the right to call me sister?" Gu Qianyan's face was full of contempt, her eyes showing undisguised disgust. Her icy tone was like a knife stabbing straight at Su Xian. Su Xian was stunned for a moment, then stood up and cried out, "Gu Qianyan, you're going too far. This is what you call going too far?" Gu Qianyan's face was full of mockery. She sneered, then slowly stood up and walked over to Su Xian. She lifted her hand, pinched her chin, and forced her to look into her eyes, which held an unquestionable authority. She said icily, "I already gave you a chance just now. You didn't take it. Now it's gone. You're not going to expose my scandals, are you?" Su Xian asked cautiously, her eyes full of worry and fear. She was terrified that Gu Qianyan, in a fit of anger, would reveal all her dirty secrets. Then she would be completely finished. Just when she thought she might really be done for this time, Gu Qianyan spoke up. "You want a chance? Trade something for it." Hearing this, Su Xian felt as if she had grasped a lifeline. She quickly looked up at Gu Qianyan and said eagerly, "What do you want? As long as I have it and it's within my power, I'll definitely give it to you." But Gu Qianyan paid her no more attention. "You're just letting her go like that, Qiao Qiao?" Zhou frowned, looking unconvinced. He really hated Su Xian and was always thinking of a way to deal with this woman who was always causing trouble. Gu Qianyan sneered and said slowly, "For someone like Su Xian, unless you make her disappear completely, it's much safer to let her stay in her current position than to make her disappear." Hearing this, Zhou was stunned at first, then had a sudden realization. Gu Qianyan stretched, feeling quite tired after the long day. She asked, "Are there any other arrangements? If not, let's go back." "No more. Zhou replied. Then, as if he had suddenly remembered something, he started muttering, "Tomorrow afternoon, they're going to announce the first public performance stage for these boys. I wonder if Gong Yi can do it." As Zhou spoke, his face was full of anticipation, and he unconsciously started talking about Gong Yi. The moment Gu Qianyan heard the name Gong Yi, a nerve was subconsciously struck. Images from before instantly flooded her mind. In a space of intersecting light and shadow, the young man had one hand braced by her ear, a smile on his face, his soft voice like a hook, calling her sister again and again. The scene was so impactful that Gu Qianyan's face immediately turned red. Zhou saw Gu Qianyan blushing and looked at her with a puzzled frown. He asked, "Why are you blushing?" "It's stuffy in the parking lot." Gu Qianyan quickly replied with an excuse, trying to hide her unnatural reaction. The elevator soon arrived at the first basement level. Gu Qianyan kept her head down, walking forward on her own, when she heard Zhou suddenly exclaim, "Oh my God, so handsome!" Zhou's voice was filled with utter surprise and admiration, clearly stunned by someone. Gu Qianyan had seen her fair share of handsome men recently and was usually unfazed. But this time, Zhou seemed exceptionally surprised, which piqued her curiosity. She followed Zhou's gaze, and when she saw, she froze on the spot. The man was wearing a casual, high-end custom suit, revealing his delicate collarbones and a superior, long neck. Looking closer, he had upward slanting phoenix eyes, a high-bridged nose, and lips that weren't thin but exuded a certain sexiness. Overall, he was indeed a top-tier handsome man. However, Gu Qianyan thought to herself that although he was handsome, he was still a notch below Gong Yi. This handsome man looked so familiar. She pondered inwardly, where on earth had she seen him before? Just as Gu Qianyan was trying hard to think, a person walked out from another elevator exit. The handsome man immediately waved at him. Gong Yi. Zhou's face was full of shock, and his excitement surged up again. As expected, handsome guys are friends with other handsome guys. He's actually Gong Yi's friend. I have to get his contact information. Scout him, sign him, and make him famous. With that, Zhou shot off like a runaway horse, running straight over there. He was so fast that Gu Qianyan hadn't even reacted yet. Zhou. Gu Qianyan tried to reach out and grab him, but missed, only able to watch helplessly as Zhou ran off. Actually, the moment she saw Gong Yi, Gu Qianyan had already recognized the handsome man. Wasn't this the man who was with Gong Yi at the club last time? After Zhou ran over, he was incredibly direct. He said straight out, "Hi, Gong Yi. I'm Gu Pailai's manager. Is this your friend?" Gong Yi just nodded. Bei was completely bewildered by this sudden situation. He looked at Zhou and asked, "Can I help you?" "Hello, sir. I'm the artist director for Star River Entertainment. This is my business card. I think your appearance is absolutely perfect. Are you interested in a career in the entertainment industry?" Zhou introduced himself enthusiastically, his eyes full of anticipation, hoping Bei would agree. Hearing this, Bei thought to himself, Gu Qianyan won't sign Gong Yi, but she's taken a liking to me. So that's why she was so cold to Gong Yi just now. It was because of me. He couldn't help but glance at Gong Yi and raise an eyebrow, finding the situation rather interesting. "This is the first time I've been scouted. I'm very honored." Bei smiled. He was quite magnanimous and readily exchanged business cards with Zhou. Just then, Gu Qianyan's car pulled up. "Keep in touch." Zhou waved happily, then turned his head to Gong Yi and said, "The public performance is about to be announced. Keep it up, little brother." Gong Yi just gave a faint, almost imperceptible nod, but his gaze was fixed on the car's interior. He saw Gu Qianyan's face was cold, not even sparing him a glance. Her indifferent attitude made Gong Yi's heart stir slightly, though it was unclear what he was thinking. Zhou happily got into the car, just as the door closed, that he was about to look at Bei's business card. But the card was suddenly snatched away by Gu Qianyan. Zhou looked closely and saw that the business card read, Executive Director of Genesis Consortium, President of Aoyang Biotechnology, Executive President of Jianxi Real Estate, Bei. Bei stood in place, watching Gu Qianyan's car slowly drive away. Only when the car disappeared from sight did he retract his gaze. Then he glanced at Gong Yi again, a half-smile on his face as he teased, "Gong Yi, you're something else. You found a pretty powerful sponsor. Gong, he shot him a cold glance, his eyes filled with indifference and disdain. Then he glanced at the conspicuous business card in Si-Bei's hand and said in an unfriendly tone, exchanging cards so readily, "What? You want to debut too?" Manners. It was purely out of politeness, Si-Bei first explained. After a pause, he deliberately added in a teasing tone, "You want it too?" That word too was truly meaningful, carrying a strange, teasing undertone. Gong, he was suddenly speechless, just remaining silent. Seeing this, Si-Bei laughed twice and quickly offered the card to Gong, saying with a smile, "Here, I'll get it to you, okay?" Boring. Gong, he was still as cold as ever. Tossing out that one word without even glancing at the business card, he turned and walked away. His cool and aloof back exuded a do-not-approach aura. Si-Bei folded his arms, watching Gong Yi's departing figure, suppressing a laugh as he stroked his chin. He thought to himself, although that Gu Qiaoyan is hard to like, she's managed to make Gong Yi seem a little more human. I guess she's done a good deed. As Si-Bei thought this, he walked to his car. Before starting the engine, he glanced at the business card again, a contemptuous look on his face. He raised an eyebrow slightly, then casually tossed the card into the car's small trash can. From the bottom of his heart, he had no intention of contacting Gu Qiaoyan. In any case, he had given his card out. Now he would just wait and see what kind of show Gu Qiaoyan would put on next. Meanwhile, Gu Qiaoyan, sitting in the car, directly tore the business card to shreds. Zhou, seeing this from the side, was heartbroken. He quickly reached out, cupping the card that Gu Qiaoyan had torn in two, and said in a complaining tone, Chow, what are you doing? Girl, open your eyes and take a good look at his identity. Gu Qiaoyan said, he's from the Genesis family. Hearing this, Zhou instantly deflated like a popped balloon. His head drooped, and he mumbled, I can't believe he's already a tycoon at such a young age. Tycoons are the sugar daddies of the entertainment industry. Why would he want to mess around in showbiz? But Gong, he doesn't have any family background. How would he know a tycoon like that? Zhou mumbled again in a low voice, his heart full of confusion, unable to figure out the relationship between the two. Hearing this, Gu Qiaoyan almost fainted from anger. She snapped, have you settled all the upcoming business deals? You have the nerve to worry about other people's affairs? Hearing this, Zhou immediately perked up. He sat up straight and quickly reported, I've scheduled meetings with 2 companies for tomorrow morning. As long as we agree on the amount and scope of obligations, we can sign the contracts. And just like that, Gu Qiaoyan successfully diverted Zhou's attention, stopping him from obsessing over Gong Yi and Si-Bei's business. In the car, Zhou, with nothing to do, scrolled through the live news. Suddenly, he saw that another wealthy businessman had been exposed in a sordid scandal. He couldn't help but gasp. Gu Qiaoyan glanced at the news and commented casually, why have so many local tycoons been getting into trouble lately? It's true. The big network these tycoons painstakingly built to protect each other has finally been breached. And the breach is widening by the day. More and more dark secrets are being exposed. This is called he who is unrighteous will bring about his own downfall, Gu Qiaoyan said slowly, her tone filled with disdain for these corrupt businessmen. Although it hadn't reached the level of the scandal making the news, Jin Sheng's recent days had also been incredibly difficult. It was as if he were cursed. Nothing was going right. The Tycoons Club he had invested in and operated with friends for many years had been plagued by constant incidents during this period. One troublesome matter after another gave him a splitting headache. The goods were all agreed upon. Why won't they deliver? On this particular night, Jin Sheng encountered another vexing problem. Another one of his shipments had been canceled. This made him explode with anger on the spot. He roared, his face red with fury. President Jin, this is the 5th order. Should we go and beg young Master Si-Bei? After all, you almost messed with his woman, a subordinate cautiously suggested. That was a gift to me from Gu Qiaoyan's father. Hearing this, Jin Sheng's anger flared even hotter. He roared, the sound echoing in the room, making his subordinate tremble in fear. The subordinate quickly added, isn't Gu Qiaoyan's sister in your hands? You can have her pass a message to Gu Qiaoyan. Jin Sheng froze for a moment. Then, as if suddenly realizing, nodded repeatedly and said loudly, how could I have forgotten about her? Go to that President Wang's place right now and bring her back. Clean her up. Time quickly passed to the next day. The trainees of National Idol were in the middle of recording the show. After announcing the rules from the stage, Gu Qiaoyan said loudly, now will everyone for class A please come over here to draw your songs. Gong Yi was last in line and slowly walked over. When he stood before Gu Qianyan, her expression remained unchanged, just as it had been with every trainee before him, showing no particular emotion. After drawing his song, Gong Yi went to stand to the side. Yue witnessed the entire scene and was ecstatic inside. He thought to himself, Xiao Xiao is being so cold to Gong Yi too. Could it be that Xiao Xiao has dumped this pretty boy? At this thought, Yue almost lost control of his happy expression. The corners of his mouth couldn't help but curl up. Luckily, he reacted in time, forcing a smile for the camera, trying to hide his true feelings. Then, something happened that left even Gu Qianyan speechless. Gong Yi and Yue were actually assigned the same song, and they were opponents. Although Yue was itching with hatred and wanted to eliminate Gong Yi, he couldn't say it out loud in front of everyone. He could only bottle up these thoughts, force a smile, and continue to fake a grin for the camera. Then, Gu Qianyan raised her voice and announced, "Your first public performance will be held in 7 days. Please give it your all and strive hard." The set was bustling with people coming and going, a lively and busy scene. Gu Qianyan stood in the spotlight, looking dazzlingly beautiful, as if she had her own aura, attracting everyone's attention. But in the shadows, a pair of eyes was staring intently at Gu Qianyan, filled with venomous resentment and unwillingness. Why is it like this? Why is she still the one high above, while I'm the one trampled in the mud? Gu Qianyan. Gu Qianyan caught a glimpse out of the corner of her eye, then quickly turned to look closely, recognizing the other person at once. Gu Qianyan panicked for a second, but quickly composed herself. She crawled to Gu Qianyan's feet, her face full of pleading, and cried, "Sister, I'm begging you, please let me go. Ever since you sold me to Jin Sheng, my life has been a living hell. Please, I beg you, let me go." Gu Qianyan responded coldly, "The one who sold you was your father, your own biological father, for a full 300 million, didn't you know? Qianyan, things have already come to this, and you still want to frame me? I have other work to do. If you're just here to make a scene and record it, please leave." Hearing this, Gu Qianyan realized her little trick had been seen through. She had just secretly turned on her phone to record. She now frantically turned off her phone, and her expression changed in an instant. With an interrogating tone, she asked, "Is Si Bei your sponsor? Did you order him to go after President Jin?" Gu Qianyan simply said, "I don't know him, and I don't have a sponsor." But inwardly, she thought, what a small world for enemies. It's this Si Bei again. Who knew this matter would involve him? But Gu Qianyan shouted, "Cut the crap. How could you not know each other? Last time Jin Sheng wanted to kidnap you, his men deliberately crashed a Bentley into Jin Sheng's car. And that time at the club, he even came and beat Jin Sheng up. Si Bei is about to ruin Jin Sheng for you. Jin Sheng said that if I can't sort this out, he'll make my life a living hell." With that, Gu Qianyan dropped to her knees with a thud, crying and begging, "Please, save me. Ask young master Si Bei to let Jin Sheng go." To her surprise, Gu Qianyan raised her hand and slapped her, leaving Gu Qianyan stunned. Gu Qianyan said angrily, "I don't know Si Bei, and I don't need you making a scene here. Besides, if you're being tormented, shouldn't you be begging Gu Diheo? What does it have to do with me?" Gu Qianyan looked at her, and images of Gu Qianyan's childhood involuntarily surfaced in her mind. Once, she had truly loved this younger sister, cherishing her like a precious jewel. She would give her the best of everything at the first opportunity. The sisterly bond back then was so genuine. But in the end, the image in Gu Qianyan's mind froze on Gu Qianyan's hideous expression just before her death in her past life. That ugly face had destroyed all the beautiful memories from before. It's too late. Gu Qianyan looked at Gu Qianyan coldly. Her voice was soft but held a tone of finality, as if everything from the past could never be undone. Gu Qianyan stiffened, then slowly stood up. She wiped the tears from her face. Her eyes filled with resentment as she looked at Gu Qianyan and said through gritted teeth, "You're determined to show no mercy, aren't you?" Gu Qianyan slowly walked up to Gu Qianyan, staring straight into her eyes, and asked word by word, "What do you call this? Showing no mercy?" Gu Qianyan looked at this face, so close and so beautiful it made one's teeth ache with hatred. She trembled with anger, but was helpless against Gu Qianyan, feeling incredibly frustrated. Who was it that trampled on my kindness? Gu Qianyan was expressionless as she poked Gu Qianyan's shoulder with her finger, the force carrying her anger and disappointment. Gu Qianyan was pushed back a step. Before she could steady herself, Gu Qianyan pushed her again, saying coldly, "Who was it that exploited my familial love?" Then Gu Qianyan pushed her again, her tone even colder as she demanded, "Who was it that endlessly abused and humiliated me?" Like this, Gu Qianqian was pushed back step by step until she reached the door, looking utterly wretched. "You're clearly unharmed, but my family is practically ruined," Gu Qianqian cried. "Even if you have resentment and hatred, it should be gone by now, right? I'm unharmed because I'm capable. What's it to you?" Gu Qianyan raised an eyebrow contemptuously. The disdain in her eyes provoked Gu Qianqian even more. At this moment, Gu Qianqian wished she could rush forward and strangle Gu Qianyan, but she knew in her heart that she didn't have the ability to do so. She could only endure it as Gu Qianyan directly called for Zhou Zhou, instructing, "Call security to get her out of here." Gu Qianqian felt as if her pride had been trampled on countless times. She was both ashamed and angry, but helpless. "Gu Qianyan, what goes around comes around. I will definitely make you pay." Gu Qianqian looked at Gu Qianyan with resentment. Since begging was useless, she might as well drop all pretenses. At least that way, she could retain a shred of so-called dignity. After speaking through gritted teeth, Gu Qianqian turned and left in a wretched state. Gu Qianyan was silent for a moment, thinking to herself, "My only connection to Sibei is Gong Yi. Why would he target Jin Sheng for my sake?" She immediately instructed Zhou Zhou, "Zhou Zhou, call Sibei tomorrow. Use the excuse of inviting him to sign with our company and see if you can get him a meet." "Okay, Xiao Xiao," Zhou Zhou replied. Then, as if remembering something, he said, "All right, Xiao Xiao. I just got a call saying Gong Yi is injured. Do you want to go see him?" Hearing this, Gu Qianyan was instantly shocked, her heart filled with worry. At the same time, in a practice room late at night, Gong Yi was slowly wrapping a bandage around his right hand. The movement looked a bit strained. The other trainees gathered around him with worried frowns, their faces full of concern. Yue from Group B was also there. His eyes were red, and he looked like an innocent little bunny as he said with a sob in his voice, "Gong Yi, I didn't do it on purpose. It doesn't hurt. It's fine." Gong Yi's expression was calm, as if this injury was nothing to him. Just then, a trainee's voice was suddenly heard from outside. "PD, why are you here so late?" Gong Yi's hand, which was wrapping the bandage, paused involuntarily. He thought to himself, it seems to hurt a little now. Yue had also heard the shout from outside clearly. He had specifically confirmed that Gu Qianyan had no scheduled visits to the training camp for these 2 days. That's why he had thought to take this opportunity to deliberately mess with Gong Yi, thinking that even if something happened, he wouldn't be caught on the spot by Gu Qianyan. But now, hearing that Gu Qianyan had arrived, Yue immediately became flustered. His heart was in turmoil, afraid his little scheme would be exposed. Seeing the sound of high heels on the floor getting closer and closer, almost at the door, Yue immediately burst into tears with a loud wah. While crying, he said, "Gong Yi, please don't be angry. I really didn't mean it. What's wrong?" Gu Qianyan said as she walked in. She first glanced at Yue with a scrutinizing look, then turned her gaze to Gong Yi's hand. She saw that Gong Yi, who had just been expressionlessly wrapping the bandage himself, now had a hand that looked stiff and clumsy. It looked quite serious. Yue saw all of this and was furious inside. He thought to himself, he was fine just a moment ago. The moment the PD arrives, his hand starts trembling. Is he just trying to win sympathy? "PD, just now when I came in, I accidentally pushed the door too hard and hit Gong Yi's wrist." Yue quickly interjected, speaking very fast as if afraid someone else would speak first. "Yes, I offered to take him to the infirmary, but he said it was fine and didn't hurt. He absolutely refused to go." "Yue, did you really not see Gong Yi just now?" At this moment, the martial arts specialist in Yue's group spoke up. "I saw you pacing back and forth at the door several times just now. It was obvious you were waiting for Gong Yi and deliberately slammed the door open to hit him." It seemed this teammate had also long been suffering from Yue's green tea antics and couldn't bear it anymore, which is why he told the truth in front of Gu Qianyan. "Jiang Bin, don't talk nonsense. It was an accident. I know my resources in the team are better than yours, and you've never liked me. But how can you slander me in front of the PD?" Hearing this, Yue immediately retorted anxiously, a wronged look on his face. Then he turned to Gu Qianyan and said tearfully, "PD, please believe me. I really didn't do it on purpose." Gu Qianyan frowned slightly, growing suspicious about the matter. She felt there was definitely more to it. Yue saw this and thought Gu Qianyan was about to side with him against Jiang Bin, and he was secretly delighted. But he didn't expect her to say, "There are cameras and surveillance everywhere here. If you really want to argue about who's right and who's wrong, go check the footage." Gu Qianyan said in a deep voice. After speaking, she paid no more attention to their argument and walked directly to Gong Yi, taking his hand to carefully ask about the situation. It's fine, I'm not in pain. Gong Yi finally spoke again. Though he said it didn't hurt, his brow twitched slightly. That subtle movement still revealed that he was actually enduring the pain. But on the surface, his wrist was indeed swollen and looked quite serious. Gu Qianyan's eyelid twitched, and she felt a little worried. She quickly said, "Stop practicing. I'll take you to the infirmary." Gong Yi's face was a little pale now, but he still shook his head and said stubbornly, "I'm not going. The public performance is just around the corner. If it gets worse, it's one thing if you mess up your own performance, but what about the rest of your group?" Gu Qianyan's brows were tightly furrowed, her face stern, her tone leaving no room for argument. "Come with me." Gong Yi still wouldn't look at Gu Qianyan. To others, he didn't seem to show much expression, but Gu Qianyan could feel it. What he was conveying to her was a sense of immense grievance, as if she had bullied him. After a moment, Gong Yi finally nodded, agreeing to go to the infirmary with Gu Qianyan. Yu Wei, watching from the side, was about to cough up blood from anger. He thought, who's the real green tea here? This Gong Yi really knows how to act, and Gu Qianyan just eats it up. It's so infuriating. I'll go too. After all, I'm the one who accidentally hit him. Yu Wei quickly said, thinking, I can't just let them be alone. I have to go with them. You still have an unresolved dispute here. Settle that first. Gu Qianyan rejected him directly. Yu Wei was instantly speechless and could only watch helplessly as Gu Qianyan left with Gong Yi, feeling incredibly frustrated. Gong Yi and Gu Qianyan didn't say much on the way, but when they arrived at the infirmary, they found the doctor wasn't there. This was a bit awkward. Gu Qianyan's brows were furrowed as she looked at Gong Yi's wrist with a worried expression. She thought that since the doctor wasn't here, she might as well apply some medicine for him herself. They couldn't just wait around. You're really something, aren't you? You sprain your wrist and don't come to the infirmary, but instead just wrap it with a bandage yourself. Gu Qianyan couldn't help but complain as she prepared the medical supplies. Doesn't the PD hate me? Why the rush now? Gong Yi kept his eyes lowered, still refusing to look at Gu Qianyan. His tone held a hint of grievance, as if he were sulking. Gu Qianyan froze, not expecting Gong Yi to say that. She sighed and replied, I don't hate you. I just think our boundaries should return to those of a mentor and a trainee. Why? Hearing this, Gong Yi immediately looked up, staring straight at Gu Qianyan, and asked urgently, as if he couldn't comprehend her words at all. Gu Qianyan's anger shot straight to her head. She thought, I already caught him with C-Bay, and he still has the nerve to ask me why? This is infuriating. What else? You're spending your sponsor's money on one hand and flirting with me on the other, Gu Qianyan said angrily. After saying this, she leaned down and pinched Gong Yi's chin with one hand. The gesture was a bit forceful. The distance between them closed in an instant, and the atmosphere became somewhat delicate. But looking at Gong Yi, his face was full of innocence and confusion. His expression made it seem as if he had no idea what Gu Qianyan was talking about. Two-timing? Gong Yi muttered under his breath, thinking, I'm not even on one boat. Where did this two-timing come from? What is she overthinking now? Honestly, seeing Gong Yi pretending to be clueless, Gu Qianyan became even angrier. She took a deep breath and lowered her head further. She brought her lips to Gong Yi's ear and whispered, Stop acting. The morning of the fire alarm, after you and C-Bay spent the night at the club, I was there too. Hearing this, Gong Yi was instantly speechless. After a moment of silence, he said lightly, You mean C-Bay, my sponsor? After another moment of silence, Gong Yi thought to himself, watching her deal with her adoptive parents and a bully like Jin Sheng. Thus she had the air of someone who could conquer all. She doesn't seem like a muddle-headed person. How come she's so confused about this? But then again, he found this plot development rather interesting. Ah, so you found out. Gong Yi said this lightly, his tone casual, yet with a hint of deliberate teasing. Gu Qianyan didn't expect him to respond this way. Inexplicably, she was flustered by his light tone. Her heart fluttered, and her face couldn't help but blush slightly. And after saying that, he even smiled. It was a genuine smile. His eyes and brows relaxed. The corners of his mouth turned up slightly. The smile was incredibly handsome, exuding an irresistible charm. With him being so close at this moment, Gong Yi's smile was a devastating blow to Gu Qianyan, leaving her unable to defend against it. Gu Qianyan felt her heart skip a beat. Her initial rage almost dissipated completely, the anger in her heart losing losing its force. She quickly let go of Gong Yi's chin and cursed fiercely, yet with a lack of conviction, frivolous, shameless. Sister, you're so strange. On one hand, you don't want me, but on the other, you get so angry because I'm going to find someone else. Gong Yi, however, was not flustered at all. His face was full of pure confusion as he spoke slowly, his innocent appearance making it seem as if he truly didn't understand why Gu Qianyan was angry. But in reality, he knew very well. You don't want me, and I have no money. What can I do but find someone else? Gong Yi looked at Gu Qianyan, his eyes filled with sincerity. His pitiful appearance made it seem as if Gu Qianyan was the one bullying him, and he even asked her with a straight face. Hearing this, Gu Qianyan's head spun with anger. She thought, what is this? Is this being a kept man with an attitude? How did this suddenly become my fault? It's so infuriating. Don't wait for the doctor. Go back. It'd serve you right if it hurts to death, Gu Qianyan said. She stepped forward, intending to grab Gong Yi's uninjured hand and drag him out. Out of sight, out of mind. But who would have known? The next second, Gong Yi reacted extremely quickly. He grabbed Gu Qianyan with a reverse grip and, with no effort at all, pulled her into his arms in one swift and clean motion. Gu Qianyan froze, her heart lurching. She was both shocked and angry, unsure how to react for a moment. She just stared wide-eyed at Gong Yi. And sister still says she's not angry, Gong Yi said, looking at Gu Qianyan with a slight smile, teasing her. Let go, Gu Qianyan said word by word, snapping back to her senses. Her tone held an unquestionable firmness, but her heart was in turmoil from their close contact. But Gong Yi didn't let go. Not only did he not let go, he wrapped his arm around her waist, tightening his grip as if afraid Gu Qianyan would run away. I haven't agreed to him yet. Sister still has time to consider. I'll wait for you to change your mind, Gong Yi whispered close to Gu Qianyan's ear. The warm breath on her ear made her face flush redder and her heart beat faster. Just then, the sound of footsteps and voices came from outside, getting closer and closer. Gu Qianyan instantly panicked. Fortunately, Gong Yi knew his limits. After saying his piece, he let go of Gu Qianyan. The movement was very natural, as if nothing had happened. As soon as she was free, Gu Qianyan immediately backed far away. She had always thought this kid was just a sweet, flirty little puppy, since he usually seemed so obedient. But in that instant just now, Gu Qianyan had a sudden realization. He's a wolf cub, she thought. Just then, the door creaked open, and the doctor hurried in, probably having just finished with something else. Gu Qianyan glanced at Gong Yi, said nothing, and walked straight out. Her retreating figure looked a little flustered, as if she wanted to quickly leave this place that made her feel awkward and made her heart race. Gong Yi, are you all right? As soon as the doctor came in, he hurried over to Gong Yi and asked with a concerned look. As he spoke, he prepared to check Gong Yi's wrist. Gong Yi's hand, which had been stiff in front of Gu Qianyan, could now move freely. He moved it a couple of times with a blank expression and then said, I won't trouble you, doctor. I'm fine now. After speaking, Gong Yi gave a slight nod and also left the infirmary. Qianyan had just stepped into the elevator when Yue caught up right behind her. Yue was extremely anxious, constantly worrying that Gong Yi would badmouth him to Gu Qianyan with embellishments. That would be terrible. His image in Gu Qianyan's eyes would become even worse. But when he turned around, he saw Gong Yi. His heart skipped a beat, and he became a little nervous. Gong Yi, however, was very calm. He flexed his bandaged wrist, looked at Yue, and said in a cold tone, Don't harass Gu Qianyan. Psycho, who do you think you are? Ordering me around? Yue rolled his eyes and snapped. After saying this, he started to head downstairs, not wanting to get any more entangled with Gong Yi. However, before he could even react, he felt the world spin, and he was suddenly on the ground, letting out a painful cry of ouch. It turned out that Gong Yi had acted swiftly, yanking him back and throwing him hard onto the ground. The force was considerable. You dare hit me? Yue shouted, both shocked and furious, glaring at Gong Yi. As he spoke, he struggled to get up, fuming inside and thinking he must find a chance to get revenge. But the next second, Gong Yi's foot came down mercilessly on his right wrist. The forceful stomp made Yue scream in pain again. Gong Yi looked down at him, his eyes cold and contemptuous, and said in an icy tone, Yue, I'm only warning you once. Stay away from Gu Qianyan, and don't play any more tricks on me. Why should I listen to you? Is Gu Qianyan yours? Yue asked through gritted teeth, his eyes red with anger and hatred. But with his wrist pinned by Gong Yi's foot, he couldn't break free. Gong He kept his foot on Yu Wei's wrist, then slowly squatted down, a smile playing on his lips. But that smile held a chilling meaning. He said, word by word, of course. Yu Wei was stunned by Gong Yi's gaze and words, rendered speechless for a moment. Gong Yi looked at Yu Wei's stunned expression and then repeated more clearly, Gu Qiaoyan in his mind. Although the practice of being kept was prevalent in the entertainment industry, and Yu Wei knew of several such cases, that this was the first time Yu Wei had ever seen someone admit it so arrogantly. He was both shocked and furious, thinking Gong Yi was just too brazen. Before Yu Wei could recover, the already unbearable pain in his wrist intensified instantly. Sweat poured down his forehead, and his face turned red from the pain. Gong Yi, even if you have a sponsor, this is the training camp. If you dare to injure me, just wait to be kicked out. Yu Wei shouted at Gong Yi through gritted teeth, his voice trembling with pain. But Gong Yi just lowered his eyes. Out of the corner of his eye, Yu Wei thought he saw him smile. It was a smile filled with coldness and disdain, as if he didn't take the threat seriously at all. Then let's give it a try, Gong Yi said coldly. As soon as the words left his mouth, he stood up, looking down at Yu Wei, his face still expressionless. Then he stomped down hard, adding more force with his foot. Yu Wei immediately let out a piercing scream that echoed throughout the hallway, sounding particularly shrill in the quiet night. The commotion probably startled many people. Only then did Gong Yi unhurriedly retract his long leg. He didn't even glance at Yu Wei, who was writhing in pain on the floor. He just lightly rotated the wrist that Yu Wei had deliberately injured, his expression the epitome of coldness, and said, I'll be waiting for you to get me kicked out. After speaking, Gong Yi turned and left coolly. His departing figure exuded a cold and domineering aura, as if what had just happened was no more significant to him than crushing an ant. By the time Yin Chengcheng arrived at the treatment room, Yu Wei had almost cried himself unconscious. His wretched state looked quite pitiful, but anyone who knew the full story probably wouldn't sympathize with him. The moment Yu Wei saw Yin Chengcheng, he burst into heart-wrenching sobs. Crying, he shouted, CEO Yin, you have to stand up for me. Gong Yi in the training camp is too outrageous. Relying on his improper relationship with PD Gu, he brazenly stomped on my wrist and fractured it. But Yin Chengcheng just pulled over a chair, sat down with his legs crossed, and looked at Yu Wei with disgust. He said impatiently, what are you crying for? You were the one who injured his hand first. He's just returning the favor. The fact that he didn't break your entire arm is already giving you face. Yu Wei's crying came to an abrupt halt. He froze, staring blankly at Yin Chengcheng, his face filled with disbelief. He said weakly, CEO Yin, I've seen the surveillance footage. You deliberately injured Gong Yi first, Yin Chengcheng said, glaring at him. Then, Yu Wei stammered and said, his wrist was just a minor sprain, but he fractured mine by stomping on it. How can these two be the same? You deserved it. It's already good enough that he didn't break your arm, Yin Chengcheng said fiercely. His tone carried an unquestionable authority that made one's heart tremble. Yu Wei gritted his teeth, filled with hatred. But he didn't dare talk back to Yin Chengcheng, so he could only swallow his anger. He secretly thought it must be Gu Qiaoyan. She must be helping Gong Yi behind the scenes. That's why CEO Yin is so biased towards Gong Yi. It's so unfair. He then wanted to bring up Gong Yi's promiscuous relationships, but just as he was about to speak, Yin Chengcheng impatiently cut him off, shouting, I don't want to hear your nonsense. I'll give you two options. 1, go back to training as quiet as a mouse, and don't cause any more trouble. I'll pretend nothing happened tonight. The second option, pack your things and get out of the training camp. If you dare to spout a single word of nonsense outside, I'll blacklist you immediately. Yin Chengcheng waved his hand dismissively, his expression showing that even looking at Yu Wei for another second was annoying. In reality, Yin Chengcheng really wanted to just give Yu Wei one option, blacklist the bastard and be done with it. It would save him the trouble of constantly causing problems, which was a real headache. But Gong Yi had said before that he couldn't be bothered to use tactics on such a small fry. So, Yin Chengcheng gave Yu Wei these two options as a favor to Gong Yi. CEO Yin, I'm the real victim. Yu Wei hadn't given up and tried to argue for himself again. You're just a bastard. Yin Chengcheng grew even more impatient and cursed, the disgust in his eyes almost overflowing. Yu Wei's face turned pale. He didn't dare say anything more, feeling both angry and scared. He recalled what Gong Yi had said before leaving. I'll be waiting for you to get me kicked out. Only then did he realize that Gong Yi already knew Gu Qianyan would pave the way for him. It seemed that to deal with Gong Yi, he had to find a way to get to Gu Qianyan first. After dealing with Yu Wei, Yin Chengcheng still went to check on Gong Yi, as he was quite concerned about his condition. Looking at Gong Yi's wrist, Yin Chengcheng asked, "Will it be okay?" Gong Yi responded. He then asked, "When is Sibei coming back?" He said he can't miss your first public performance. He'll make a temporary trip back and leave after watching your performance. Yin Chengcheng replied. Hearing this, Gong Yi slightly raised an eyebrow and even curled the corner of his lips, a barely perceptible smile on his face. He said, "When Sibei comes later, don't stop him. Let him come see me more often." Yin Chengcheng was instantly confused. Didn't he say last time not to let them come? Yin Chengcheng faintly sensed that something was off. He mused to himself. It was supposed to be a movie with 3 people. How did those 2 secretly upgrade their relationship? On the other side, Gu Qianyan was definitely exhausted after the long day. She took a shower and fell asleep almost as soon as she collapsed onto the bed. Her tired body entered dreamland the moment it hit the mattress. The bedroom window was open a crack. Gu Qianyan was probably extremely tired. As she slept, she suddenly felt her limbs become as heavy as lead. The feeling was incredibly uncomfortable. She couldn't even move. Jie. In a daze, Gu Qianyan suddenly heard a familiar voice gently call out to her. The voice seemed to come from far away, yet it also felt like it was right by her ear. She slowly opened her eyes. She was sleeping on her side. The moment she opened her eyes, she saw a person opposite her. The person watching her quietly was none other than Gong Yi. For a moment, Gu Qianyan thought she must be going crazy. How is this possible? How could Gong Yi be here? I must be dreaming. I must be too tired and hallucinating. Time's up. I have to go, Gong Yi said softly again. His voice held a trace of reluctance and perhaps a bit of helplessness. Then, Gu Qianyan heard herself shout hoarsely, "Don't go." Gu Qianyan woke up with a start. She was panting heavily as she shot up into a sitting position, a hint of panic still in her eyes. She looked around. The room was quiet, with only the faint sound of the wind blowing through the crack in the window, gently rustling the curtains. "Chow chow." Zhou's anxious voice came from outside the door. It was followed by the sound of hurried footsteps. Zhou had obviously heard the commotion from Gu Qianyan's side and rushed over, worried something had happened. "What's wrong?" Zhou ran to Gu Qianyan's side. Seeing her still shaken look, he quickly reached out to wipe her cheeks. While wiping, he said in surprise, "Why are you crying?" Gu Qianyan's brows were tightly furrowed, her mind still immersed in the dream. She subconsciously said, "I'm not, my." After speaking, she also raised a hand to touch her own cheek. She felt that it was indeed wet. She instantly felt quite embarrassed and thought the whole thing was absurd. What kind of dream was that? Seeing Gu Qianyan's expression, Zhou's face became even more peculiar. He hesitated for a moment before saying cautiously, "I think I might have, possibly, heard you shouting for Gong Yi." Gu Qianyan's hand trembled. Her heart skipped a beat, and she inwardly cursed her luck. "It's over, I'm doomed. Have I really been bewitched by that little wolf cub Gong Yi? Why am I even dreaming about him and shouting his name out loud? If Zhou found out about all the messy thoughts in her head, it would be too embarrassing." "You heard wrong," Gu Qianyan said firmly, her tone leaving no room for doubt, hoping Zhou would believe her. "No, I heard it very clearly. It was a very loud, heart-wrenching shout for Gong Yi." But Zhou still looked serious. He was also puzzled. Why wouldn't Gu Qianyan admit it? He had heard it so clearly. Gu Qianyan was speechless. She thought, "You don't have to describe it in such detail. This is just getting more and more awkward." Maybe. Gu Qianyan began to fabricate with difficulty, trying to find a reasonable excuse. "I saw Gong Yi get injured, so I probably incorporated it into a nightmare." "Oh, I see," Zhou said, though he still found it bizarre. He thought to himself, but that's no reason to cry out like that. However, seeing that Gu Qianyan didn't want to talk about it, he didn't press the matter. Gu Qianyan clutched her chest. For someone as busy as her, the dream that night didn't originally hold much significance. At most, it was because she had been so captivated by that young man that she'd become a little obsessed, leading to a strange, inexplicable dream. In any case, she didn't want to dwell on it any longer. So, Gu Qianyan went back to sleep. This time, she slept soundly without any more strange dreams. All sorts of work came one after another, and Gu Qianyan was busy from dawn till dusk every day. Soon, she naturally put this strange dream to the back of her mind. In the blink of an eye, the day of Nations Idol's first public performance arrived. Gu Qianyan rushed back without stopping. When she arrived at the recording venue, it was already surrounded by a sea of fans. Among them were Gu Qianyan's own fans. In her past life, she was despised by everyone. She never expected this life to be so different. Looking at the fans holding signs with her name and enthusiastically shouting for her, Gu Qianyan was quite moved. She couldn't help but take a longer look, her face showing a mixture of astonishment and emotion. She thought to herself, how could she not be touched that so many strangers from all over the country cared about her, whether she was eating and sleeping well, and if she was happy? When the crowd thins out a bit, find someone to buy them some drinks, Gu Qianyan said to Zhou Zhou. With so many fans here to support her, she felt she should show her appreciation. Got it. Zhou Zhou nodded repeatedly. He quickly agreed. Just as Gu Qianyan and her group entered the elevator and the doors were about to close, a woman's voice called out from outside. Wait a minute. Then, a pair of hands with exaggerated nail polish pride opened the closing elevator doors. The woman standing at the elevator door was Yang Shui's best friend, Li Hua. As soon as Li Hua entered, she sneered at Gu Qianyan. Sister Yang was so good to you before. I never thought someone so young could be so good at backstabbing. Kicking someone out as soon as you gain some status. You're so ungrateful. Her tone was full of sarcasm and contempt. It was clear she had come with ill intentions, to cause trouble for Gu Qianyan on behalf of Yang Shui. Sister Hua, what are you talking about? Didn't Yang Shui bring it on herself? Who told her not to be a decent person and insist on being a mistress? At this moment, Gu Qianyan, unhurried, spoke slowly with a gentle and kind smile on her face. Sister Hua, you should take Yang Shui's situation as a cautionary tale. It's not easy being a mistress. If the wife finds out, the consequences are never good. Hearing this, Li Hua was instantly petrified. All the insults she had prepared were suddenly stuck in her throat. Li Hua had originally thought that Yang Shui's affair was quite secretive and shouldn't have been discovered. She had come this time to avenge her best friend and give Gu Qianyan a harsh lesson. Who would have thought she'd stumble right out of the gate, rendered speechless by Gu Qianyan's few words just as she started. Right at the elevator door, she was hammered into a state of utter confusion. Her original arrogant demeanor vanished in an instant. Gu Qianyan then glanced at the time and saw that there was still an hour before the public performance officially began. She said, the performance starts in an hour. Let's go see how the trainees are preparing. When those hot-blooded young men saw Gu Qianyan arrive, they became as boisterous as a pack of wild monkeys, letting out a chorus of strange cries. How is everyone's preparation? Gu Qianyan, as usual, asked with a gentle smile on her face. Excellent. We're aiming for first place today, right, Captain? A trainee said excitedly, turning to look at the captain, his eyes full of expectation. The captain himself, however, remained as cold as ever, merely giving a soft MHM in response. How's your hand? Gu Qianyan's gaze fell on Gong Yi as she asked with concern. After all, his hand had been injured before, and she was still worried about it. It's fine, Gong Yi replied, his tone flat and emotionless. Just then, Gong Yi's choreographer walked in and said to him, Gong Yi, come out for a moment. No way. Another mid-performance evaluation? The other trainees immediately started wailing. Captain, you've already had 3. This is too unfair. But Gong Yi shook his head and said, it's not that. A friend has arrived. A friend has arrived. When Gu Qianyan heard this, her ears perked up. She was incredibly curious, wondering to herself what kind of friend it was. Why hadn't she heard him mention it before? Then, Gong Yi brushed past her and went out. As fate would have it, just as Gu Qianyan walked to the next practice room, she saw Gong Yi standing with Si Bei. She didn't know what they were talking about, but Si Bei had a radiant smile on his face and seemed to be in a very good mood. The moment Gu Qianyan saw this scene, she became angry. She thought, didn't Gong Yi say he hadn't agreed? Why are they chatting so happily now? He's such a liar. In fact, Gong Yi had already seen the angry Gu Qianyan from a distance. A triumphant smile played on his lips, and he deliberately hugged Si Bei. The action was very obvious. He was doing it for Gu Qianyan to see, wanting to deliberately provoke her. This really infuriated Gu Qianyan. She cursed inwardly. Jerk. Scumbag. She turned and ran off, thinking as she ran, what on earth is he trying to do? This is so infuriating. Young Master C. Bei was still looking bewildered. He watched Gu Qianyan's retreating back, then looked at Gong Yi's triumphant expression and instantly felt like tearing his hair out. He thought, what is all this? How'd I get dragged into this mess for no reason? Meanwhile, in the props area, Yue was once again plotting something evil. He was thinking about how to sabotage Gong Yi so he couldn't win the championship. He pondered for a while. Then, he came out humming a little tune, feeling quite pleased with himself, certain that his plan would succeed. Who knew that the next second, just as he reached the corner, he almost bumped into Gu Qianyan. He was startled at first. Then he looked left and right and saw that Gong Yi wasn't around. He thought, I must seize this opportunity. The next practice room Gu Qianyan entered was the one where Yue's group was. PD, I'm so nervous. The moment Yue saw Gu Qianyan, he put on an affectedly delicate and artificial expression, patting his chest and pretending to take deep breaths. He was clearly hinting for Gu Qianyan to come comfort him, hug him, and give him some encouragement. Seeing this, Gu Qianyan felt disgusted. She really wanted to go out and drag Gong Yi over to let him see what this kid who was playing poor and miserable was really like. Your group has performed at a major New Year's Eve concert. Tonight's audience is only 500 people. Just treat it as usual, Gu Qianyan said blandly, a professional, fake smile on her face. The meaning behind her words couldn't be clearer. Simply put, she was telling Yue to stop pretending. What was there to be nervous about in a situation like this? Just as Gu Qianyan was talking to Yue, Gong Yi happened to be passing by outside. Yue, having sharp eyes, spotted Gong Yi and, as if defying gravity, suddenly pretended to lose his balance and fell straight towards Gu Qianyan's arms, as if he really couldn't stand steady. But who knew that in the next second, Gong Yi lunged forward and steadily caught Gu Qianyan. As for Yue, he fell precisely onto the floor. His wretched state was utterly comical. PD, are you okay? Gong Yi looked at Gu Qianyan with concern, his eyes full of worry. I'm fine, but Yue took a faceplant, Gu Qianyan said. Then came a lukewarm voice. Yue, do you need me to take you to the infirmary? Yue, suddenly being shown such concern by Gong Yi, was terrified. He knew all too well how ruthless Gong Yi could be. He quickly forced a smile, endured the pain in his wrist, and slowly took a step back, hastily putting distance between himself and Gu Qianyan, afraid of causing any more trouble. Gu Qianyan just gave a faint acknowledgement and left Yue's practice room, heading to the other group's rooms to check on them. After leaving Yue's practice room, Zhou began to chatter excitedly. Xiao Xiao, did you see that? My boy is so sweet. That move just now was overflowing with boyfriend material. Hearing this, Gu Qianyan's face immediately turned red. She felt a little embarrassed, but didn't know how to respond to Zhou. At that moment, Gu Qianyan happened to be passing the props room. She suddenly remembered seeing Yue come out of there just now. A sense of suspicion arose in her heart. Everyone was practicing hard, so what was he doing in the props room? Thinking of this, she quickly asked Zhou to go check the items in the props room to see if anything was amiss. Not long after, the trainees' public performance officially began. The lights in the areas outside the stage slowly dimmed, instantly setting the atmosphere. The competition kicked off. The lighting, stage design, music, and everything else were ready. The atmosphere on site was both tense and enthusiastic. Everyone was looking forward to the upcoming stage performances. Gong Yi's group was the first to officially begin their performance. As soon as the performance started, Yue's eyes widened, staring intently at Gong Yi on the big screen. His gaze was filled with unwillingness and competitiveness. He thought, I can't let Gong Yi steal the show in this performance. Time passed, second by second. Gong Yi's performance on stage was flawless, without a single mistake. Yue grew more and more anxious, muttering to himself, how can this be? How is he not making any mistakes? Who would have known that not only did Gong Yi complete the performance flawlessly, but he also delivered an exceptional solo part. His exquisite dance moves, moving vocals, and powerful stage presence instantly conquered everyone in the audience. As his solo was about to end, Gong Yi deliberately glanced towards Gu Qianyan. His gaze held a special meaning. as if he were showing off to her, or perhaps asking, "Aren't I amazing?" Gu Qianyan noticed his gaze and lowered her eyelids. Although she told herself to remain composed, the corners of her mouth couldn't help but curve up slightly. It was a pride that came from the bottom of her heart for Gong Yi's brilliant performance. But this feeling didn't last long. "Awesome." Gu Qianyan vaguely heard Yin Chengqing's voice from the side. She subconsciously glanced over. This glance was quite a shock. Not only did she see Yin Chengqing, but she also unexpectedly saw Si Bei standing next to him. The two of them standing together were quite eye-catching. After Gong Yi's group finished their performance on stage, the lights went out. Then, the lights came up on Group B, which was Yu Wei's group. The boiling excitement from just now quickly subsided. Everyone's attention shifted to the next performance. Before Yu Wei could figure out the previous question, a bolt from the blue struck him. After the performance started, he discovered that his in-ear monitor had no sound. This made him frantic. On stage, having no sound in your in-ear monitor severely affects your performance. However, his group's performance had already begun. Left with no choice, Yu Wei could only close his eyes and push through, singing by feel alone. The result was naturally far from ideal. Unsurprisingly, Gong Yi's group, with their spectacular performance, won this PK battle with an overwhelming number of votes. Yu Wei's meticulously prepared first public performance was ruined just like that. One can imagine how much he hated Gong Yi in his heart right now. Gigolo. The moment Yu Wei saw Gong Yi, he threw his image to the wind and started cursing. "How could you be so despicable? You knew you couldn't beat me on stage, so you resorted to such low-handed tricks." Gu Qianyan was striding over in her high heels, wanting to see what was going on. "PD, you're just in time. You have to stand up for me." The moment Yu Wei saw Gu Qianyan, it was as if he had seen his savior. He rushed towards her, looking so desperate, as if he had been greatly wronged. But Gong Yi stepped forward and blocked Yu Wei's path, his cold demeanor exuding an inviolable aura. Yu Wei had been throwing a tantrum for so long, but Gong Yi hadn't given him a single glance the entire time, as if he didn't exist. Only now, when Yu Wei was furious and reached out to push Gong Yi, it looked like he was ready to fight him to the death. Seeing this from his side, two words flashed through Yin Chengqing's mind. "It's over." Sure enough, in the next second, Gong Yi reacted extremely quickly. With one hand, he flipped Yu Wei to the ground. The move was clean and decisive, and quite powerful. Everyone was shocked to see this. No one had expected Gong Yi to suddenly get physical. The scene fell silent for a moment, followed by a burst of whispers. Everyone was stunned by the sudden turn of events. Gu Qianyan frowned slightly and chided Gong Yi, her voice tinged with seriousness. She clearly felt that Gong Yi's action just now was inappropriate. Hearing this, Gong Yi just gave her a faint glance and said calmly, "Self-defense." "PD, you can't keep covering for Gong Yi. He's gone too far." Yu Wei, afraid that Gong Yi would attack him again, scrambled up from the ground and cried tearfully to Gu Qianyan, "My performance mistake on stage just now was because Gong Yi swapped my in-ear monitor. I couldn't hear the music. I couldn't hear my own voice. That's why I made such a mistake." Gu Qianyan frowned after hearing his words and asked, "Are you sure?" Yu Wei immediately said urgently, "I'm sure. This in-ear monitor isn't mine." Just then, the assistant director in charge of the in-ear monitors appeared and said, "That's right. There was indeed a problem with Yu Wei's in-ear monitor. It got wet." "I see," Gu Qianyan murmured thoughtfully. After a moment, Gu Qianyan spoke again. "I'm a little confused. Why are you so sure that this water-damaged in-ear monitor belongs to Gong Yi?" Hearing this, Yu Wei froze. He had a bad feeling, thinking to himself, "This is what they mean by death by a single phrase. How could I have been so careless and said the wrong thing?" It was a slip of the tongue. Yu Wei quickly corrected himself, saying anxiously, "What I meant was Gong Yi sabotaged my in-ear monitor." Gu Qianyan pursed her lips and said slowly, "It seems it might really be as Yu Wei said. Someone sabotaged this in-ear monitor to win. This is a serious matter. Let's check the surveillance footage." Yu Wei was stunned. His heart sank. He never imagined that Gu Qianyan would have someone check the surveillance footage. If they checked it, everything would be exposed. After all, the footage would only show him appearing nearby, and he wouldn't be able to explain himself. Forget it. Yu Wei lowered his eyes, putting on a wronged and tearful expression. His voice choked with sobs as he said, "I don't want to make a fuss. The The performance is over, and my disastrous failure can't be changed. As he spoke, he closed his eyes, looking extremely pained. Let's just leave it at that. I don't want to cause any more trouble for the staff. But in the end, they checked the surveillance footage anyway. When Yue saw this, it felt like 1,000 arrows piercing his heart. He was utterly desperate. Originally, everyone wanted to kick Yue out, but Gong Yi stopped them. Gong Yi looked at Yue coldly and warned him, "Don't pull any more tricks in the future. Otherwise, I'll post the surveillance footage online and let everyone see what you've done." After speaking, Gong Yi turned to leave. When he reached the door, he suddenly seemed to remember something. He looked back at Yue and said slowly, "I should probably tell you. Don't mess with the production team's equipment in the future. I bring my own microphone and in-ear monitor." With that, Gong Yi opened the door and left, his departing figure exuding a cool and ruthless air. Hearing this, Yue's face turned deathly pale. He thought, so all my efforts, which even cost me my first public performance, were completely useless against Gong Yi from the very beginning. This bolt from the blue nearly struck him dead. Yue suddenly felt the world spin, his legs gave way, and he collapsed to the ground. The reason Gong Yi didn't let him get kicked out was because elimination would have been the best reward for Yue. Gong Yi casually waved goodbye, saying it's getting late. "You all should head back. I have something to do, so I'll be leaving first." The two people next to him instantly understood. He was going to find Gu Qiaoyan, but they were also puzzled. It was so late. What was he going to see Gu Qiaoyan for? What Gong Yi was thinking of course, was to go steal a kiss. In the underground parking lot, Gu Qiaoyan saw Gong Yi walking towards her. She was a little surprised and asked, "What are you doing?" Gong Yi walked up, placed a hand on the wall beside her, and performed a cave-dawn, trapping Gu Qiaoyan against the wall. With a mischievous smile, he said, "I've come to thank you, Jie. People say that when someone saves your life, you should repay them with your body." At these words, Gu Qiaoyan's heart began to pound, and her face unconsciously flushed red. Then, Gong Yi reached out and pulled open his shirt, revealing his firm abs. The lines were incredibly alluring. He said with an ambiguous look, "So today, whatever Jie wants to do to me is fine." Inappropriate images flashed through Gu Qiaoyan's mind. She imagined a red ribbon tied to the car, while her own hand caressed his abs. The two of them doing some indescribable things. Her face turned even redder. Gu Qiaoyan lowered her head slightly and whispered, "Really? Anything?" As she spoke, she unconsciously moved closer to him, narrowing the distance between them. Gong Yi reached out and grabbed her wrist, his eyes holding a bewitching glint. He said firmly, "Of course, as long as Jie wants it, anything is possible." Gu Qiaoyan looked at Gong Yi, who was as tempting as a juicy peach. She felt she couldn't resist such temptation. On impulse, she leaned in and kissed him. She thought, "I can't hold back anymore, so I might as well indulge myself." Then, her hand unconsciously moved to his abs and slowly slid down. Just then, some noise came from outside. Gu Qiaoyan immediately stopped her actions. Only then did she realize how impulsive she had been. She quickly backed away, putting distance between herself and Gong Yi. She said to Gong Yi, "I helped you only out of my responsibility as a mentor. There was no other meaning. Besides, you've already chosen Bei. It's better to be faithful." Gong Yi slowly buttoned up his shirt, a half smile on his face, and asked in return, "Jie, how did you know I've already chosen Bei?" Gu Qiaoyan looked disdainful and said, "He already came to visit the set and declare his sovereignty. You're still not official? What a scumbag." Gong Yi raised an eyebrow, looked at Gu Qiaoyan's innocent face, and said, "All right, I admit Bei does want to sponsor me, but the only one I've chosen is you. Jie, do you want me or not?" As he spoke, he put on a pitiful expression. He looked incredibly cute, like an innocent little animal. This completely dazed Gu Qiaoyan. She could only feel her heart pounding, thinking he's so cute. I really want to ravage him. But just then, a rational voice spoke in her mind. "No, you have to resist." Gu Qiaoyan said to Gong Yi with a serious face, "I'm not what you think I am. Don't get too close to me. It's not good for you. Bei is powerful and influential. He can make your future path much smoother." As she spoke, she pulled the seatbelt and fastened it. "I'm going to pick up Zhou. You should get out." After speaking, she began to push Gong Yi out of the car. She directly shoved Gong Yi out. She didn't forget to say, "I wish you and Bei happiness." Gong Yi didn't even have a chance to say goodbye and could only watch helplessly as Gu Qiaoyan drove away. He thought me and Bei happy? I play my hand wrong. How did it end up like this? At this time, Gu Qiaoyan returned home. As soon as she entered, someone walked over and said, "Sister Xiao, I'm Xiao Tian." Sister Zhou had something to attend to and took a leave of absence. She arranged for me to take care of you. Gu Qianyan was a little puzzled, wondering why she hadn't been told about the leave in advance. Was it an emergency? Xiao Tian continued, "Sister Qiao, next week is your birthday. The partners are asking if we want to hold a fan meeting, a birthday party, to invite your fans to celebrate with you." Birthday? Gu Qianyan froze. In her heart, that day was just a trick used by that scumbag couple, Gu Diheo, to make money. She suddenly remembered what Gu Sisi had told her in her past life, that she wasn't her parents' biological child, but was abducted to be a money-making machine. Back then, to abduct her, that couple had even personally killed her biological parents. Thinking of this, Gu Qianyan closed her eyes, enduring the heart-wrenching pain. She thought to herself, "Mom, Dad, are you really gone?" Then she put down the water glass in her hand and said coldly, "Don't prepare anything. I don't celebrate my birthday." Xiao Tian, standing by, looked at Gu Qianyan's state with some worry, wondering how she could possibly do the photo shoot in this condition. Later, the two arrived at the shooting location. Xiao Tian looked at Gu Qianyan worriedly and said, "Sister Qiao, you don't look well. Can you really go into the water later? If not, let's find a body double." Gu Qianyan, who had already changed into a mermaid costume, shook her head and said firmly, "No double. I can do it." With the command to start shooting, Gu Qianyan dived into the water and began the photo shoot. During the shoot, Xiao Tian waited by the side with a bath towel. The moment Gu Qianyan came ashore, she quickly wrapped it around her, afraid she would catch a cold. She also praised, "Sister Qiao, you are so beautiful." Who knew that in the instant Gu Qianyan's attention wavered, her head buzzed as if she had been hit by a powerful stimulus. She suddenly lost her balance and fell into the water. Seeing this, Xiao Tian was dumbfounded. She stood there, momentarily at a loss for what to do. In the next second, Gong Yi suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Without a second thought, he dived straight into the water and swam towards Gu Qianyan. He grabbed her and pulled her into his arms. To prevent Gu Qianyan from suffocating, Gong Yi couldn't care about anything else and could only lean in to kiss her and give her air. A moment later, Gong Yi emerged from the water, holding Gu Qianyan. The people around gasped when they saw this scene. Great, they're out of the water. But Gong Yi still had a worried look on his face. He said urgently, "Get her to the hospital, quickly," because Gu Qianyan was now unconscious. But her lips were still softly murmuring Gong Yi's name. In her sleep, Gu Qianyan seemed to have fallen to the bottom of the sea again. She shouted, "No, don't die, save me." Just as she was despairing, an arm firmly grabbed her own. She struggled to open her eyes and saw that the person was Gong Yi. Then, Gu Qianyan woke up abruptly from the dream. She opened her eyes in terror, panting heavily. Her head throbbed with pain, and she felt a bit dazed. But the first person she saw was indeed Gong Yi. She was full of confusion and asked, "Gong Yi, why are you here?" Gong Yi just pursed his lips, but didn't speak, simply watching her quietly. Gu Qianyan stood up. Frowning, she said, "Aren't you in intensive training? Why did you run out?" But before she could finish her words, Gong Yi suddenly leaned in and kissed her. The two of them were instantly caught in a very ambiguous situation. Just then, Zhou Zhou's voice came from the doorway. Gu Qianyan snapped back to her senses at once and hurriedly pushed Gong Yi away with force. Her face was bright red, and with a hint of anger, she said, "Are you crazy?" Gong Yi was seen unhurriedly wiping away the lingering moisture on his lips. Looking at Gu Qianyan, he said in a firm tone, "I went crazy. The moment I saw you collapse in the pool, I had already gone crazy." Gu Qianyan now understood. What happened just now wasn't a hallucination. It was real. Gong Yi had truly saved her. Gong Yi was seen looking at her with deep affection, saying, "Sister, can you not make me worry anymore in the future? I'm really scared of losing you." After hesitating for a long time, Gu Qianyan finally asked the question, "Gong Yi, do you like me?" Upon hearing this, Gong Yi's face immediately broke into a happy smile. He said without hesitation, "Yes, I've liked you since the first time I saw you." However, Gu Qianyan's expression suddenly turned very gloomy. She forcefully pushed Gong Yi away and said coldly, "I don't know if this is a professional seduction tactic or if you genuinely like me. Gu Qianyan is no saint. I'm a demon who can even eliminate the person who raised me without hesitation. So I advise you, don't mess with me again. Otherwise, I won't show you any mercy." Hearing this, Gong Yi felt a pang of sadness in his heart. Like a wronged child, he lowered his head innocently. Seeing him like this, Gu Qiaoyan was suddenly flustered, thinking to herself, but he just saved me today. Was what I said too cruel to him? But then she thought that she still had more important things to do. She couldn't just get entangled with him like this. In the next second, however, Gong Yi suddenly reached out his hand and pinned Gu Qiaoyan onto the hospital bed. His eyes held a peculiar glint as he said, "Sister, how do you know I'm not a demon?" Gong Yi instantly moved closer to Gu Qiaoyan's ear and whispered, "You're a demon, and I'm a demon too. What a perfect pair we are. Sister, why do you still reject me?" At this moment, Gu Qiaoyan's face instantly turned red. Both shy and annoyed, she quickly said, "Let go of me, Gong Yi." But he relentlessly moved even closer, his eyes full of obsession, saying, "Sister, don't get sick again and don't let yourself get hurt. Otherwise, I really will lock you up, regardless of the consequences, so that your world only has me in it. You dare?" Gu Qiaoyan glared at him and said. Just then, Zhou, who was outside the door, had already turned the doorknob and was about to come in. Seeing this, Gong Yi immediately returned to his normal demeanor. He said to Gu Qiaoyan, "PD, it's getting late. I won't disturb your rest any longer. I'll come see you again when I have time." As he spoke, he also greeted Zhou on his way out. "Sister Zhou, I'm leaving. I'll come visit PD again next time." Zhou walked over, looked at Gu Qiaoyan, and said with a smile, "Look at that. This kid is really quite nice. I heard from Xiao Tian that he had originally taken leave to deliver something to Si Bei. He was passing by the studio when he saw you faint, so he jumped straight into the water to save you. And he stayed with you the whole time. He's such a good kid who respects his teachers." Hearing this, Gu Qiaoyan couldn't help but frown. She thought to herself, respects his teachers? More like rebellious and heretical. In the entire training camp, he's the only one who dares to force me to be his sponsor like this. It seems I need to contact Si Bei as soon as possible. You little brat, you think you're so clever? I'll find a way to make Si Bei keep you firmly by his side. Let's see how you dare to seduce people then. Meanwhile, Li Hua found Zhou and asked, "How have you considered the matter I told you about last time?" Zhou replied decisively, "I'm not considering it." But Li Hua wouldn't give up, saying, "It's fine if you haven't decided. I didn't come looking for you this time to force you to jump ship to my side right now. I just want you to help me take some photos of Gu Qiaoyan." Zhou was seen refusing without hesitation again, saying, "I won't take them. Give up on that idea." Hearing this, Li Hua's expression changed. She stepped forward, closing the distance between them, her eyes filled with threat. She said, "Don't be so quick to refuse. I'll wait for you for half a month at most. If you don't give me the photos, I'll spread your explicit photos all over the internet." Now Zhou was in a difficult position. She gripped her phone tightly, and tears couldn't help but slide down. She felt both angry and scared, not knowing what to do. Half a month later, Gu Qiaoyan didn't expect Si Bei to agree to come back so quickly and even agree to the meeting. And her own illness hadn't even fully recovered. Then she asked Zhou, "You can't tell I look sick from my condition today, right?" Zhou said with a smile, "Look at you. You're absolutely stunning. Don't worry. With your aura today, anyone who didn't know better would think the main wife is about to go deal with the mistress." "That's great. That's exactly the aura I'm going for," Gu Qiaoyan said. Before the two of them even reached the door, they heard a commotion from inside. Li Hua was shouting, "I booked a table a week ago. No one told me the place was booked out." "What do you mean booked out? You guys aren't doing this on purpose, are you? Am I not a valued guest? What do you mean by this? Are you looking down on me?" The waiter hurriedly and repeatedly apologized. "My apologies, valued guest. It was a last-minute booking for the whole venue today." Gu Qiaoyan saw Li Hua and thought to herself, "Why is she here?" Li Hua also happened to spot Gu Qiaoyan and called out in a snide tone, Well, CEO Qiao is here to spend some money today, too? Too bad this place is booked out today. You won't be able to eat. Better find another place." To her surprise, the waiter changed his tune and said to Gu Qiaoyan, "Miss Gu, this way, please." Li Hua understood instantly. So it was Gu Qiaoyan who had booked the venue. She immediately became even angrier. Her expression was indescribably ugly, but she couldn't act out, so she could only glare helplessly. Gu Qiaoyan walked past coolly and said, "Excuse me. Pardon me, I'm going first." Now Li Hua was grinding her teeth in hatred, but there was nothing she could do but fume in silence. Just as she reached the door of the private room. Gu Qianyan heard another commotion from inside. Someone in the private room said, "Didn't I just give you 2 million last week?" It was followed by a woman's voice saying, "How is that little bit of money enough to spend? Hurry up and give me the card. Your guest has arrived. I have to go." Afterwards, Si-Bei was seen with a beautiful woman in his arms, saying, all right, I'll give it to you now." Gu Qianyan was stunned seeing this scene. She thought to herself, could it be that this Si-Bei is discussing Gong Yi's matter while also keeping another person? Her impression of Si-Bei instantly soured. The woman was seen swaying gracefully as she walked out. Gu Qianyan glanced at her and thought to herself, she looks decent enough, but how can she compare to Gong Yi? Is Si-Bei's taste that bad? What a scumbag. Then she saw Si-Bei lower his head slightly and say with a hint of apology, "My apologies. The young lady is a bit immature. Miss Gu, please have a seat." Gu Qianyan had a smile on her face as she calmly sat down in the chair opposite him. Then she gave Zhou Zhou a look, signaling for her to go out first. She had some things to discuss with Si-Bei alone. After Zhou Zhou left, Gu Qianyan looked at Si-Bei and said straightforwardly, "Mr. Si, I won't beat around the bush. You should be interested in Gong Yi's matter, right? He feels that you have saved me a few times and therefore suspects you are my sponsor. I just want to ask today, why did you appear at the clubhouse that day?" Si-Bei just unhurriedly swirled the red wine glass in his hand and said nonchalantly, "I just enjoy helping others." Gu Qianyan's gaze instantly sharpened. She pressed on, "Which person were you helping?" But Si-Bei waved his hand and said faintly, "You don't need to know." Just then, a commotion was suddenly heard from outside the door. It was Zhou Zhou's voice. "Li Hua, must you fight me until the bitter end?" Hearing this, Gu Qianyan felt that the situation was not good. She immediately stood up and said hurriedly to Si-Bei, "Excuse me, I have to go handle something right now." As she spoke, she grabbed the red wine bottle from the table and rushed out. The moment she stepped out, she heard Li Hua saying arrogantly, "Who do you think you are? What do you have to fight me with? To fight me to the bitter end? Your explicit photos? You refuse to do what I tell you, and you still dare to be arrogant in front of me. You're nothing but a dog by Gu Qianyan's side, and you dare to get physical with me?" As she spoke, she reached out to poke Zhou Zhou's body. Zhou Zhou was so angry her face turned bright red, but for a moment she was too choked up to speak. Seeing this, Li Hua became even more aggressive. She raised her hand to slap Zhou Zhou. She also cursed viciously, "Kneel for me. Otherwise, I'll post your nudes online tomorrow." Just as the slap was about to land, Gu Qianyan rushed forward in a single bound. She grabbed her arm and shouted, "Stop!" But Li Hua relentlessly glared at Gu Qianyan and cursed, "Well, stray dog, your master has arrived." To her surprise, in the next second, Gu Qianyan pushed hard, shoving Li Hua directly against the wall. Then she grabbed her clothes and asked with an icy gaze, "What nudes?" Li Hua was frightened by Gu Qianyan's fierce gaze. Her body trembled slightly as she hurriedly said, "It was half a year ago. Yang Shui had her deliver a document to our clubhouse. My younger brother drank too much and wanted to do something indecent to her, but he didn't succeed in the end." Zhou Zhou ran away from the back. Hearing this, Gu Qianyan's expression grew even colder. She said in a frigid voice, "Besides the photos, what else did you do to Zhou Zhou?" Li Hua quickly and nervously explained, "We just took some photos. We really didn't do anything else." "Miss Gu, please don't be rash." Gu Qianyan snorted coldly, brushed off the dust she had just gotten on her clothes, and said through gritted teeth, "Good. Very good." As she spoke, she raised the wine bottle in her hand and smashed it forcefully against a nearby wall. With a crash, the bottle shattered all over the floor, sending shards of glass flying everywhere. Gu Qianyan picked up a piece of broken glass, pointed the sharp end at Li Hua's neck, her eyes filled with an unquestionable ruthlessness. She said, "Li Hua, before 5 o'clock, I want to see that bastard brother of yours hand over all the photos and videos. He also has to write a clear confession of his crime and slap himself 2,000 times." Hearing this, Li Hua's legs went weak from fear. Her face was deathly pale. Leaning against the wall, she trembled, her face filled with nothing but terror and fear. Gu Qianyan moved closer and closer to Li Hua's face, step by step, a fierce look in her eyes. She lowered her voice and said menacingly, "Otherwise, I'll call Mrs. Lang right now. She would probably be very interested to know about your and Mr. Lang's secret base, wouldn't she?" Li Hua heard this. Her face turned deathly white. She trembled like a leaf and hurriedly said, No, I promise you, I'll do as you say." "Miss Gu, please, you must not make that call." Gu Qianyan was seen snorting coldly, casually tossing the piece of the bottle in her hand aside. Then she reached out, lifted Li Hua's chin, and said coldly, "Li Hua, you should be glad that this dirty business was discovered by me in advance. If anything had really happened to Zhou Zhou, I wouldn't have hesitated. I would definitely make you wish you were dead." Li Hua was so scared she collapsed onto the floor, not daring to even breathe. She was on the verge of a complete breakdown. Gu Qianyan turned and told Zhou they could go. Zhou hurried to follow, saying with a grateful expression, "Thank you, Qiao Qiao." And this entire scene happened to be witnessed by Si Bei. Si Bei pointed at Gu Qianyan and said to her, "So you know how to threaten people?" To his surprise, Gu Qianyan shot him a look and said, "What? Are you scared, Mr. Si? Then let me warn you too. Although we don't know each other well, and I shouldn't interfere in your private affairs, but I hope you can be more devoted. Gong, he is not a plaything." Si Bei was shocked to hear this. With a face full of confusion, he said, "When did I ever treat Gong E as a plaything? Miss Gu, I don't quite understand what you mean." Gu Qianyan thought to herself, "This two-timer dares to act all innocent with me?" Then she said, "So, you don't plan on making Gong E your one and only. Is that so?" Si Bei was even more stunned. He frowned and said, "Why would I make him my one and only?" Gu Qianyan was seen asking again, between Gong E and that girl from just now, who was more important? Si Bei replied without thinking, "Of course it's Shinran." Hearing this, Gu Qianyan was both shocked and angry. She thought to herself, so he's not the one and only, and he can't even be number one. Is this scumbag blind? Gong E is 10,000 times better looking than that woman, okay? At this time, Si Bei noticed the blood on Gu Qianyan's hand and kindly said, "Miss Gu, you have a shard in your hand. Do you want me to help you clean it?" Gu Qianyan was seen snorting coldly and, without hesitation, pulled the glass shard out of her hand. The pain made her frown slightly, but she still gritted her teeth and said, "Scumbag." After saying that, she turned her head and left. Zhou also turned back and said to Si Bei, "I'm sorry, young master Si Bei. We have something to attend to, so we'll be leaving first." Si Bei stood there looking completely innocent. His heart was full of confusion. He thought to himself, so what exactly did I do wrong? How did I become a scumbag? No, I have to call Gong E and ask first. Gu Qianyan returned to the car, still looking angry. Zhou hurriedly helped her clean the wound. She was so filled with suppressed anger at the moment that she couldn't even feel the pain from the wound on her hand. Zhou was seen saying cautiously, "Qiao Qiao, I know I was wrong." Gu Qianyan looked at Zhou and said, "We'll talk about your matter later. Right now, let's figure out a way to get Gong E out of the training camp. I need to get Gong E before Si Bei does." Zhou said with a surprised look, "Gong E? What's the situation?" Gu Qianyan said with a determined expression, "Yes, it's Gong E. I'm going to be a sponsor now.